Chapter 461 Taiji Rule. Cosmic Force? Please subscribe. Master's parents and relatives did not break through to the Unity Path stage. Li Qing hesitated, then spoke softly. Not having reached the Unity Path stage, and relying on the lifespan of the refining void period, they could live for at most 100 or 200,000 years. It's impossible for them to be alive now, which means they would have passed away long ago. Are they all gone? Lin Yuan, upon hearing this, showed no surprise and sighed inwardly. This was actually the most common outcome. The breakthrough from the 6th stage martial Tao to the 7th stage is immensely difficult, just as the transition from the refining void period to the Unity Path stage is equally challenging. Though Jun Dongjin had a mutated heavenly spiritual root, one of the rarest talents in the central divine China world, it was not so outstanding in the spirit realm. In the spirit realm, apart from judging talents based on spirit roots, many other Tao bodies exist. Jun Dongjin cultivated to the peak of refining void, but ultimately failed in his attempt to reach the Unity Path stage and was severely injured. Mu Lianer did not cultivate to the peak of refining void, and neither did Jun Xiaoyao nor Jun Jilan. With Lin Yuan's contingency plans left behind, they successfully entered refining void and ascended to the spirit realm, but their cultivation progress slowed afterward. How have they been? Lin Yuan inquired. They've been quite well. The Dao Immortal sect has not mistreated them. Li Qing immediately said, not daring to harbor any designs against Jun Dongjin and the others before knowing Lin Yuan's whereabouts. After all, keeping Jun Dongjin and others was not even considered a burden for the vast Dao Immortal sect, and the Congqing Immortal even summoned them several times to preach Dao. But transitioning from refining void to unity is not something that can be achieved with just a couple of sermons or by giving enough cultivation resources. Otherwise, everyone in the Dao Immortal sect would be a true immortal, not just the dozens of true immortal anchoring it. Before my parents passed away, they asked me not to give up looking for you. Li Qing spoke with a somewhat heavy voice. What a pity. Lin Yuan shook his head slightly. If he had traveled through time a bit earlier, perhaps the outcome would have been different. In the future, if I can become a supreme being, I might try resurrecting them. Lin Yuan thought silently to himself. Supreme beings wield complete control over time and space rules, able to reverse time and lift previously deceased beings back to life. Before their deaths, Jun Dongjin, Jun Jilan, and the others reached the refining void stage, similar to 6th rank in life essence strength. Even without deliberately merging their life essence with the spirit realm, having lived so long, their essence had already been recorded by the spirit realm. As long as Lin Yuan became a supreme being and arrived in this world, reversing the flow, he should be able to resurrect them. As for their having died of natural lifespan exhaustion, even if resurrected, they would face the limits of their lifespan in a few breaths' time. But Lin Yuan could completely use those few breaths to extend their lifespans. The methods to extend lifespan in the spirit realm are useless, but in the main world, there are plenty. As for the world's backlash after resurrecting a life, reviving a few 6th rank lives and the resulting backlash is trivial for a supreme being. Also, the descendants of Master's elder brother and second sister in the Dao Immortal sect are doing quite well. Li Qing seemed to remember something and promptly spoke. With Lin Yuan's connection, Li Qing, comparable to a 7th stage martial Tao, being a pillar for the Jun family's descendants, as long as Li Qing is alive, it's unlikely that the Jun family's descendants would fare poorly, and the Congqing Immortal is also watching. Is that so? Lin Yuan glanced at Li Qing. Master, would you like me to invite a few outstanding descendants from the Jun family to come visit you? Li Qing tentatively asked. That works. Lin Yuan pondered for a moment. After all, having some karma with the Jun family, now that he had returned, meeting them was not a bad idea. All right. Li Qing closed his eyes and began making contact immediately. As a major general for Dao Immortal sect in external campaigns, Li Qing naturally had ways to directly communicate with the Dao Immortal sect. About Master's news, should we keep it hidden? After conveying the message, Li Qing cautiously asked. Congqing Immortal once told me that if there's any news of Master, I must tell him immediately. The Congqing Immortal is still alive? Lin Yuan was interested. This old fellow's performance still quite satisfied him. At least he didn't kick him when he was down when he wasn't around. According to the information Lin Yuan had, since the days in the central divine China world, the Congqing Immortal had already lived for several 100,000 years. With hundreds of thousands of years passing by, even a Unity Realm true immortal at its peak probably should have expired. The Xianxia immortal transcended the heart demon tribulation, so he has a much longer lifespan than a normal true immortal. Li Qing immediately replied. To advance from unity stage to tribulation transcendent stage, an immortal cultivator needs to transcend 2 tribulations. One is the bodily tribulation. Another is the heart-spirit tribulation. The latter is similar to the heart-demon tribulation. For an immortal cultivator, the most difficult to transcend is the bodily tribulation. Most methods of the immortal cultivator do not focus on the body. Faced with the 5 declines of man during bodily tribulation, bodily decay, there are hardly any ways to resist. I see. Lin Yuan nodded. A unity realm true immortal who had passed through the heart-spirit tribulation, although still far from a tribulation-transcending celestial king, had their spirit soul and will transformed. Their soul's lifespan was significantly extended. And for a true immortal, a decaying body can simply be replaced. As long as the soul lives on, they can be regarded as immortal. No need to hide it, Lin Yuan said calmly. Hide it? Why hide it? Now that Lin Yuan had fully regained his strength and even advanced further, even among tribulation-transcending celestial kings, he was considered an extraordinary powerhouse, not inferior to a supreme immortal king. Under such circumstances, there was absolutely no need to hide. Chapter 462 Taiji Rule. Cosmic Force? Please subscribe, _2, yes. Li Qing responded. After chatting with Li Qing for a few more moments, Lin Yuan turned towards the other 2 who were sitting upright, Nie Yun and Xianxia. These 2 martial Dao 7th rank cultivators were the promising new talents in the martial Tao cultivation system. They had managed to step into the 7th rank with the guidance left by Lin Yuan. Their martial talents were indisputably remarkable. You haven't received my guidance before, which is indeed not easy. Inside the jade slip is my refined understanding of the 7th rank cultivation, which should be of help to you. Lin Yuan's mind stirred, and 2 white jade slips appeared in front of Nie Yun and Xianxia. These 2 cultivators in their 7th rank cultivation had not gone deep, although they had stepped onto the path of the 7th rank, which Lin Yuan considered misleading. But there was still a chance for them to reshape their paths. As for you, Lin Yuan turned to Li Qing. Li Qing was already at the peak of the 7th rank. Reshaping her martial foundation was not a simple matter. However, Lin Yuan had already formulated an idea, and merely by observing Li Qing for a while, his against heaven's understanding allowed him to create a suitable method for her to reshape her cultivation. Against heaven's understanding, depending on the heights Lin Yuan reached, who was now at the 8th layer mid-period, creating a mere 7th rank reshaping method hardly wasted any effort. Thank you, Master. Li Qing expressed her immense gratitude. After reaching the peak of the 7th rank, she faintly sensed that there seemed to be no path ahead. If nothing unexpected occurred, she would likely stop at this point in her life. She was not a martial ancestor with earth-shattering talent who could create possibilities in the impossible. Li Qing's ability to step into the 7th rank was due not only to luck but also significantly to the instruction left by Lin Yuan. Nie Yun and Xianxia left the martial temple hall with stirring emotions. Martial ancestor. They had actually met the legendary martial ancestor today. And the strength of the martial ancestor, to say nothing of comparing with a tribulation-transcending celestial king, was at least much stronger than that of the Xianxia immortal of the Dao immortal sect who was half-step into the tribulation-transcendent stage. Our martial Dao can also give birth to such powerful figures? Xianxia was invigorated, and he returned to his dwelling with Nie Yun, unable to calm down for a long time. The existence of the martial ancestor showed them that martial Dao was not a dead end. Like the immortal path, it was also a great avenue to the heavens. Right. The jade slip from the martial ancestor. Nie Yun seemed to remember something and reminded him. Just now in the martial temple hall, the martial ancestor had given each of them a jade slip. He said it would help with their forthcoming martial Dao cultivation. Right. The jade slip. Xianxia immediately reacted. He took out the white jade slip directly. The jade slip looked ordinary. It was hardly any different from those used by low-ranking qi refinement and foundation establishment cultivators. But to Xianxia, a 7th-stage martial Tao cultivator, he revered it as if it were a sacred relic, holding it before his eyes. Finally, Nie Yun and Xianxia looked at each other and simultaneously began to read the content of the jade slip. It only took a moment for their expressions to change dramatically, their hearts stirring with profound emotions. So this is what 7th stage martial Tao cultivation was supposed to be. So 7th stage martial Tao cultivation could also be approached like this? So 7th stage martial Tao cultivation should indeed be like this. The content within the jade slip was not abundant, but the two 7th rank martial Taoists spent a whole day reading it. They pondered over every word, and with each contemplation, they discovered different meanings. A day later, Xianxia suddenly came to his senses, looking at the jade slip in his hand and muttered, "Our martial Tao is also a great avenue to the heavens." Nie Yun, radiating an inspired aura and with a glint in his eyes, exclaimed, "The martial ancestor truly is a divine being. Creating martial Tao from nothing, and now elucidating so much about the 7th rank chapter." The two people looked at each other again, stood up, straightened their robes, faced the martial temple hall, and respectfully bowed 3 times. "Thank you, martial ancestor, for the benevolence of passing the teachings. Thank you, martial ancestor, for the benevolence of passing the teachings. Thank you, martial ancestor, for the benevolence of passing the teachings." Martial Temple Hall. Lin Yuan sat there, his expression contemplative. Guiding the 3 7th stage martial Tao cultivators was a trivial task for him. At that moment, however, Lin Yuan was pondering another matter. Huailong Palace? Lin Yuan said to himself. Huailong Palace, a Tao integration level force in the Zhejiang domain, had been at war with the Taoed immortal sect for tens of thousands of years. 2 major forces were at odds over the essence of heavenly water, already at each other's throats. Every few hundred to 1,000 years, they would wage war, and nearly 10 Unity Realm true immortals would join the battle. Li Qing and 2 other 7th stage martial Taoists were mostly on the battlefield with Huailong Palace. Initially, when Jun Dongjin ascended to the spirit realm, at the peak of the refining void period, he was severely injured by a draconic ancient saint from the Huailong Palace. Had it not been for that severe injury, Jun Dongjin might have had a chance to step into the Unity Path stage. Of course, it was only a possibility, and in fact, he was likely still doomed to fail in breaking through. But at least it would have lightened the backlash, allowing him to live for several hundred more years. Above the spirit realm, from high to low, there were 9 heavens. Each heaven contained some kind of phenomenon, either a manifestation of the origin rule of the great Tao or a sort of miracle related to the essence of the world. The 4th heaven. A figure, seeming like a burning sun, stood with his back to all. It was indeed Lin Yuan's Taiyang divine spirit. "With my current strength, I can only stop at the 4th heaven. As for the 5th heaven..." Lin Yuan looked up at the sky, where dark clouds gathered densely, intertwined with numerous pale purple thunderbolts. To enter the 5th heaven, one must surpass the 9-fold thunder tribulation, which is far more terrifying than the bodily tribulation in the Unity breakthrough to tribulation transcendence. Although Unity Realm true immortals can roam the 9 layers of the spirit realm, such powerful beings usually only wander in the 1st and 2nd heavens. As for the 3rd heaven, they basically can't enter, and the 4th heaven is the domain of tribulation transcending celestial kings. The 5th heaven? Probably only the powerful among the immortal kings can withstand the 9-fold thunder tribulation and enter. The Taiyang divine spirit, after all, is just a divine spirit, far less powerful than its original body, unless Tai-Yin and Tai-Yang are merged into the Taiji divine spirit. Otherwise, recklessly enduring the 9-fold thunder tribulation risks the collapse of the divine spirit. Enough. Wait a bit longer. I can feel that the fusion and transformation of the Tai-Yin rule and Tai-Yang rule are almost complete. When the time comes, my body of the divine spirit will surely see a great increase in combat power. Lin Yuan felt hopeful in his heart. Ever since he reopened his inner world, the Tai-Yin rule had merged with the Tai-Yang rule, forming a light sphere suspended above the sky of the inner world, slowly transforming. Lin Yuan had a feeling that once the transformation was complete, the Tai-Yin and Tai-Yang rules would undergo an unbelievable change. Inside the cave dwelling, Lin Yuan was cultivating. At that moment, Lin Yuan quietly opened his eyes. Whoosh! Inner world. The incarnation of Lin Yuan's consciousness appeared. He looked up at the light sphere composed entirely of the power of Tai-Yin and Tai-Yang. At that moment, Lin Yuan felt a stirring in his heart, vaguely sensing that the transformation within the light sphere was reaching its final stages. Crack! A shattering sound, audible only to Lin Yuan, suddenly rang beside his ears. He saw the light sphere above the sky gradually cracking open. Threads of new power, or rather, rules, slowly began to reveal themselves. This power was black and white. At first glance it seemed no different from before, but at the infinitely microscopic level, it was the same. This meant a complete fusion. The newly born power or rules were no longer a combination of Tai Yin and Tai Yang but inherently so. The flawless power of Yin and Yang transformed into the perfect Taiji power, quickly merging into the inner world. Lin Yuan's consciousness returned to reality. He raised his right hand, the pure yin-yang power emitting a dreamlike halo, slowly affecting the surroundings. At this moment, Lin Yuan felt an absolute sense of control. Within his range of perception, he could control everything. This feeling, how similar is it to the cosmic force of the invincible 8th layer? Lin Yuan's eyes brightened. The invincible power of the 8th layer in the main world, although not replicable, had some features recorded. Almost all the cosmic forces comprehended by those invincible at the 8th layer had one thing in common. That is control. Absolute control. The fusion of Tai Yin and Tai Yang into Taiji. Is it the embryonic form of some kind of cosmic force? Lin Yuan felt elated, and at this moment, even without relying on the inner world that spans 26 million miles, without relying on his many innate divine abilities and secret techniques, he could still clash with other invincible beings of the 8th layer. Because he was now an invincible of the 8th layer. Chapter 463 LL are provisions. Please subscribe. Who would have thought that the cosmic force that countless 8th layer powerhouses in the main world yearn for, I actually grasped its rudimentary form during my 3rd rank and 4th rank? Lin Yuan couldn't help but feel emotional in his heart. The so-called cosmic force not only enhances combat power for 8th layer powerhouses. In the future, if one could step into the 9th rank or even higher, the transformation of cosmic force would be even greater. For 8th layer evolvers to comprehend cosmic force, regardless of whether they can succeed, it would undoubtedly take a considerable amount of time, possibly tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years. But the cosmic force comprehended at the 8th layer level, besides the enhancement in combat power, does not help much in breaking through to the 9th layer. Yet, in the main world, there are still a great number of powerhouses of various clans who wish to walk the path of the invincible at the 8th layer. This seems quite incredible, for after all, spending this time on fusion rules might give one a better chance of stepping into the 9th layer. In fact, if one can comprehend cosmic force at the 8th layer, should they be able to break through to the 9th layer in the future, they would be able to walk further along the 9th layer's path. Unfortunately, among 8th layer powerhouses, those who have comprehended cosmic force are too few. And even among those 8th layer individuals who have comprehended cosmic force, the number that eventually step into the 9th layer is even rarer. Out of tens of thousands of 8th layer powerhouses, it is considered extremely lucky if one who comprehends cosmic force manages to step into the 9th layer. My Taiji force. Lin Yuan carefully felt his own cosmic force. The transformed Taiji force was no longer divided into Tai Yin and Tai Yang. It seemed innate and flawless. They all say that cosmic force cannot be replicated, my Taiji force. Lin Yuan reflected inwardly before finally shaking his head. This statement is essentially correct. Lin Yuan's Taiji force is derived from the fusion of Tai Yin and Tai Yang. Even if, in future generations, a martial Dao cultivator with supreme talent in Tai Yin and Tai Yang emerges, just like Lin Yuan, mastering both Tai Yin and Tai Yang, it's debatable whether they could fuse Tai Yin and Tai Yang, and even if they truly managed to do so, the power formed would most likely not be Taiji force. Lin Yuan's Taiji force was not created with equal proportions of Tai Yin and Tai Yang, but rather adjusted according to his own adaptability. Only then did the new Taiji force come into being. Future martial Dao cultivators, even if they fuse Tai Yin and Tai Yang, the force they create will not be Lin Yuan's Taiji force. With my current strength unleashing full power, I should be able to easily suppress other invincible 8th layers, but to say defeat or even kill. Lin Yuan thought about it for a while and felt it was unrealistic. After grasping the Taiji force, Lin Yuan's understanding of such cosmic force deepened even further. Even if Lin Yuan used all his trump cards, at most he could only suppress. Forcing the opponent to flee would be difficult to achieve. Take Lin Yuan's Taiji force as an example. Once he fully defended, it was almost invulnerable to myriad laws. Even 10 invincible 8th layers might not be able to break through the defense. This is why in the main world, those 8th layer powerhouses who have comprehended some kind of cosmic force are called invincible. This is the legend of the invincible at the 8th layer. Take it slow. I feel that there is still much room for refinement in my Taiji force. Lin Yuan's thoughts converged. In the main world, Those invincible at the 8th layer who have comprehended cosmic force tend not to continue exploring it but focus all their energy on the fusion rules instead. Having already spent a tremendous amount of time comprehending cosmic force, to continue wasting time, the hope of breaking through to the 9th layer becomes even more bleak. Without breaking through to the 9th layer, even an invincible 8th layer won't have a longer lifespan than those at the peak of the 8th layer. The 9 heavens. The 4th heaven. Lin Yuan's Taiyang divine spirit and Taiyin primordial spirit appeared simultaneously. They immediately began to merge. The flawless Taiji primordial spirit reappeared. Compared to the previous Taiji primordial spirit, this one was purer and had a more stable influence on space. Lin Yuan even faintly felt that time was also slightly affected. This sensation? Lin Yuan looked around. In Xianxia City, even though Lin Yuan had grasped the Taiji force, a kind of cosmic force, he wouldn't attempt anything risky for fear that a slight mishap might lay waste to the entire city. But here within the 9 heavens, there were no such concerns. The 9 heavens were vast and boundless, each layer as large as the spirit realm, and here the spirit realm refers not to the 3,000 Dao provinces, but to the entirety of the spirit realm. Moreover, due to environmental reasons, only true immortal level powerhouses could hope to ascend to the 9 heavens, and even then, only to the 1st and 2nd layers. In the vast expanse of the 9 heavens, unless by specific arrangement, it is very difficult to encounter another person. Therefore, Lin Yuan could act without any worries here. Boom! Terrible power began to spread in all directions. The full eruption of Taiji force was like a primordial beast, wildly stirring everything in the 4th heaven. What a thrill! Lin Yuan laughed out loud, finally understanding the confidence of those invincible at the 8th layer in the main world. This power that reigns above the 8th layer can easily become addictive. The strength of my current Taiji primordial spirit is not lesser than that of an invincible 8th layer, and due to the nature of being an energy and spirit body, it is much more troublesome than ordinary invincible 8th layers. Lin Yuan had an accurate assessment of his primordial spirit. The primordial spirit is not corporeal, unable to benefit from the augmentation of the mysterious gourd to the inner world, but it also has the advantage of the primordial spirit, which is immunity to most physical damage. And since the primordial spirit is an ethereal body, it is elusive and unpredictable. In the main world, those invincible beings of energy life at the 8th layer are more dreaded than ordinary invincible 8th layers. Chapter 464 LL are provisions. Please subscribe. Undersir 2. Continue to explore the true limit of the power of Taiji. Lin Yuan struck out recklessly, and the terrifying wave of force began to shake the entire 4th heaven and even affected the 3rd and 2nd heavens below. 9 heavens. 2nd layer of heaven. A peak Dao integration true immortal was leisurely roaming this layer of heaven with a descendant he cherished. The 9 divine heavens of the spirit realm are extremely special, often visited by true immortal level powerhouses. Occasionally, they bring their progeny. For beings below true immortals, experiencing the mysteries of the 9 heavens is a great opportunity and fortune. In the 2nd layer of heaven, some spectacles and phenomena often appear. Tomorrow, observe carefully and commit it to memory. This will be greatly beneficial for your future cultivation path, said the peak Dao integration true immortal, a white-browed elder, chuckling as he stroked his beard. Understood, ancestor, replied a young disciple, swallowing nervously as he tried to look around and memorize everything he saw. After a while, ancestor, this 9 heavens is really huge, isn't it? The disciple couldn't help but exclaim. The 9 divine heavens of the spirit realm are vast and boundless. This is just the 2nd heaven, above are the 3rd and 4th heavens. The peak Dao integration true immortal patiently explained. However, only those at the half-step tribulation stage can attempt to climb to the 3rd heaven, and as for the 4th heaven, it is the realm of tribulation transcending celestial kings. The white-browed elder sighed. Although he was at the peak of Dao integration, the tribulation stage was still far beyond his reach. The mental tribulation and bodily tribulation were 2 significant barriers that obstructed countless true immortals. The white-browed elder was lost in thought for a moment and was about to speak again when his expression suddenly changed. What is that? The white-browed elder looked up. It was the area of the 3rd layer of heaven. At that moment, a terrifying fluctuation was traveling from the 3rd heaven to the 2nd heaven. Like the drums of the divine, mighty and powerful, the clouds of the 2nd heaven dispersed and the space constantly rippled. This! The white-browed elder's face showed shock. In the 9 heavens, Even a true immortal peak powerhouse like himself could at best affect an area of 10,000 miles, but now? Merely the aftershock of a force was penetrating down to the second heaven? Ancestor. Is there a half-step immortal king making a move in the third heaven? The disciple by his side trembled, and if not for the protection of the white-browed elder, he would probably have been scared into sitting on the ground. The aftershock of a higher layer's power swept down like divine might. It's not the third heaven, it's a higher layer than the third heaven. The white-browed elder carefully sensed for a while, his face slightly pale. As a peak true immortal, although he couldn't climb to the third heaven, he could still judge the source of the aftershocks. A higher layer than the third heaven? The young disciple was confused for a moment. That must mean an immortal king, at least a tribulation-transcending celestial king, is making a move. The white-browed elder spoke with difficulty, and in his heart, he had another speculation. Transmitting aftershocks to another layer was not something an ordinary immortal king could do. It might even be the famed supreme immortal king. In my lifetime, to see a supreme immortal king making a move? The white-browed elder was emotionally stirred. As a peak true immortal who had traveled 3,000 daos for many ages, he had a chance to witness a tribulation-transcending celestial king. But a supreme immortal king? That was the transcendent among celestial kings. Most true immortals never saw one in their lifetime. Shenwang Domain. Dao Immortal Sect. Li Zhu sent me a message? A no-nonsense-looking woman said, her face changing slightly as she looked towards her two peers. Li Zhu. Li Zhu's personality means he wouldn't contact us without something important, she said. Quickly check. Could it be something unexpected has happened with the war against Huailong Palace? The two peers realized the gravity of the situation. The three of them were the most outstanding descendants of Jun Xiaoyao. They were Jun Haiqiu, Jun Nangong, and Jun Yunxuan. In the spirit realm's Dao Immortal sect, the Mu family was a relatively strong lineage, but the Jun family, at least until people like Jun Dongjin ascended, there was no Jun family. After hundreds of thousands of years, with the efforts of the Jun family lineage and the support of Li Qing, the Jun family managed to establish itself in the immortal sect. I'll check now. Jun Haiqiu immediately opened the message from Li Qing. He quickly skimmed through it. Li Zhu says. Jun Haiqiu paused, somewhat unsure how to proceed. You all take a look. Jun Haiqiu expanded the message. Jun Nangong and Jun Yunxuan quickly read through it. An ancestor from our Jun family has returned? This ancestor, the youngest son of the founder of the East Jin, and the founder of the martial Tao cultivation system? The three of them from Jun Haiqiu's group were stunned. From a young age, they had heard numerous rumors about this Wuji ancestor. It was said that this Wuji ancestor had exceptional talent and had even negotiated with the Congqing immortal. Today, the position of the Jun family in the immortal sect was mainly due to the efforts of this Wuji ancestor. Without the Wuji ancestor, the Jun family would not be where it was today. They might not even have ascended from the lower realms in the first place. Wuji ancestor. He has returned. Jun Nangong's expression was somewhat excited. It had been tens of thousands of years, and the ancestors of the Jun family had never given up searching for Wuji ancestor. Even the Dao Immortal sect was searching, but there had never been any news. Many elders of the Jun family even thought that Wuji ancestor might have died long ago. Otherwise, how could there have been no sign of him for so many years? Let's go. We will meet Wuji ancestor now. The longing of my father, my mother, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, the desire of our Jun family's ancestors, has actually been realized in our generation. Jun Yunxuan was equally stirred. Li Qing's search for Wuji ancestor was a search for his own mentor. The Congqing immortal's search for Wuji ancestor also had other purposes. Only their Jun family sought Wuji ancestor from the bottom of their hearts. Since the progenitor Jun Dongjin, they always treated searching for Wuji ancestor as the ultimate goal. The martial temple is starting to accept disciples on a large scale. Anyone from the human race can be admitted to the martial temple? Upon entering the martial temple, one can receive the teachings of the martial Tao cultivation system? Even those on the immortal path can be admitted to the martial temple? Within Xianxia city, a message spread like a hurricane. Previously, the martial temple had been very strict about accepting disciples, but now they had relaxed this restriction. Hurry, hurry, hurry. There are free martial Tao teachings being given away. It said that the 7th stage martial Tao is not inferior to a true immortal of the merged path. The martial Tao cultivation system must have exceptional aspects. Figures quickly lined up outside the martial temple, whispering amongst themselves. Why is the martial temple doing this? Did the 3 ancestors of the martial temple return recently? Could this be their idea? I don't think so. Over such a long period, even when the 3 ancestors were present, the rules of the martial temple hardly changed. Now this sudden relaxation must be due to something unknown happening. Who cares, as long as there are martial Tao teachings being given out, I have nothing to lose. Martial Temple Hall. Lin Yuan sat in the main seat, his gaze sweeping across and taking in all of Xianxia city. Master, is it really okay to release the martial Tao teachings so freely? Li Qing stood respectfully on one side, cautiously inquiring. It's fine, Lin Yuan said nonchalantly. He wanted to spread the martial arts evolution system thoroughly in this realm. Relying solely on the small area of the martial temple, it would be impossible even with 1,000,000 years. Therefore, Lin Yuan decided to release the martial Tao teachings. Of course, these released teachings from the martial temple had been modified by Lin Yuan to enhance one's strength in a short amount of time. For the lower-level cultivators, whether it's the immortal path or martial Tao, or even other cultivation systems, the most crucial aspect is short-term effectiveness. Even for the great Tao, if one cannot get started and it does not bring any improvement, then it is meaningless. As for releasing the martial Tao teachings widely, which might lead to a mix of good and bad cultivators and even result in little loyalty to the martial temple, Lin Yuan did not care. In the myriad realms of the heavens, as long as one entered his martial Tao, no matter the thought process, all would be fodder for the future ultimate leap. Chapter 465. Where is Huailong Palace? Give me a direction, please subscribe. Zhejiang Domain. Huailong Palace. As a force of the Tao integration level, Huailong Palace was in no way weaker than the Tao Immortal sect, and even surpasses it due to being part of the Water Tribe's dragon heritage. The true immortal level combat power of Huailong Palace was even stronger than that of the Tao Immortal sect. Huai Dragon Hall. Dozens of figures gathered here. Huailong Palace was not a human race force, but was governed by the Water Tribe of dragon descent, with the entire Zhejiang domain essentially being their territory. My fellow members, I have decided that our palace will once again initiate large-scale warfare with the Tao Immortal sect. That heavenly essence of water must belong to our Huailong Palace, declared the Huailong Palace Master. The Huailong Palace Master was a middle-aged female whose true form was that of a mighty dragon. Although her bloodline had not reached the level of true spirit, her combat power was so formidable that she had virtually no rivals in the Unity Path stage. The heavenly essence of water is a treasure of our dragon clan, forcibly occupied by that Tao Immortal sect. This time, we must reclaim it, she proclaimed. Palace Master, I shall partake in this large-scale decisive battle as well. I am determined to slay several true immortals of the Tao Immortal sect. An eager voice joined the conversation. Without relying on Xianwang Hall, would the Tao Immortal sect stand a chance against our Eastern Palace? Another chimed in. The assembled figures vied to voice their opinions first. A so-called large-scale war meant an all-out battle to the death between Huailong Palace and the Tao Immortal sect, where each true immortal would enter the fray, and neither force would show any mercy. Such large-scale bloodshed would normally not occur once in tens or hundreds of thousands of years, due to the enormous cost involved. No matter who won, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. Xianwang Hall would never just watch the Tao Immortal sect fall without intervening. Xianwang Hall. Humph. The Huailong Palace Master let out a cold snort. In past large-scale wars, the interference of Xianwang Hall had prevented her from crushing the Tao Immortal sect. But now, the Huailong Palace Master had already overcome the bodily tribulation, significantly boosting her combat power, and ordinary half-step immortal kings did not even warrant her attention. Even before overcoming the bodily tribulation, with her true dragon bloodline, she could match a half-step immortal king in strength. Now that she had become a half-step immortal king, it would probably take 3 or 4 of them to match her. This time, Huailong Palace was resolute in obtaining the heavenly essence of water. The heavenly essence of water had a significant effect on the dragon descendants' transformation into dragons. If Huailong Palace could acquire the heavenly essence of water, their power could rise to a new level in at most 10,000 years. It could even have a considerable beneficial effect on the Huailong Palace Master when facing the ordeal of the mind and spirit tribulation. Normally, A true immortal of the Tao integration stage would have a greater guarantee of overcoming the mind and spirit tribulation than the bodily tribulation. However, being a dragon descendant, the Huailong Palace Master with her strong bodily constitution had an easier time overcoming the bodily tribulation. The ordeal of the mind and spirit tribulation, on the other hand, required much more cautiousness. Dowd Immortal Sect. Songqing Immortal sat upon the high platform. What is Huailong Palace scheming now? Songqing Immortal's brow furrowed as he received intelligence from the battlefield that the true immortal-level forces of Huailong Palace were beginning to converge towards the battleground. Could it be that they are contemplating another large-scale decisive battle? Songqing Immortal felt a headache coming on. Even with the support from Xianwang Hall, facing Huailong Palace Hall's repeated battles had begun taking a toll on the Dowd Immortal Sect. Xianwang Hall, the most powerful force in the Xianwang domain, along with another major force, stood with the Dowd Immortal Sect as the three leading giants of the Xianwang domain. The heavenly essence of water. Songqing Immortal thought of the source of the unending conflicts between the Dowd Immortal Sect and Huailong Palace. Indeed, the heavenly essence of water was not very useful for the human race cultivators. Yet even if it were useless, it absolutely could not fall into the hands of Huailong Palace. Songqing Immortal could imagine that once Huailong Palace acquired the heavenly essence of water, their power would surge within 10,000 years, surpassing the Xianwang domain to become the strongest force among the nearby dozens of great realms. At that time, the Dowd Immortal Sect would stand no chance against Huailong Palace. The heavenly essence of water is rooted in the earth's veins, it cannot be moved, it cannot be destroyed. Songqing Immortal sighed softly. Even if he could shatter the heavenly essence of water by force with a treasure, as long as the earth's veins remained, a new heavenly essence of water would be born within a few thousand years. If Huailong Palace dares to launch a large-scale war, they must have a new trump card. Has that Huailong Palace Master overcome the bodily tribulation? Songqing Immortal speculated. The Dowd Immortal Sect had been at war with Huailong Palace for hundreds of thousands of years, and knew its adversary well. The Huailong Palace Master had exhibited clues of being close to passing the bodily tribulation during her last exchange with Songqing Immortal. A true dragon who has overcome the bodily tribulation. I cannot handle her alone. Better inquire about the intentions of Xianwang Hall. Songqing Immortal was no fool and naturally would not take on the pressure of blocking Huailong Palace by himself. A moment later, after communicating with Xianwang Hall, Songqing Immortal's frown deepened again. The master of Xianwang Hall is in seclusion and cannot intervene in the short term? How am I supposed to deal with that accursed dragon? Songqing Immortal immediately felt the difficulty of the situation. I must contact other forces at the Tao integration level across different domains. Songqing Immortal's thoughts refocused, turning his attention to another piece of news. Oh! Jun Wuji, that young fellow has returned? Songqing Immortal's eyes brightened. He had waited arduously for Jun Wuji, originally thinking the young man would ascend to the spirit realm within a few thousand years, but hundreds of thousands of years had passed without any signs. Yet Songqing Immortal had not reneged on his promise because of this. After all, they had made a vow on the Tao. While breaking a Tao vow wasn't impossible, it came with heavy consequences, and to break such a vow for a mere promise was not worth the loss for Songqing Immortal. Hundreds of thousands of years. If that kid is still alive, he must be at least at the peak of the Unity Realm? Perhaps even a half-step Immortal King? Songqing Immortal mused to himself. He was well aware of Lin Yuan's potential. Taking into account Lin Yuan's forced breakthrough into the Tao integration stage in such a low world, he could at least be considered an Immortal King seed. Chapter 466 Where is Huailong Palace? Give me a direction, please subscribe. Understood 2 Of course, even for an Immortal King seed, stepping into the realm of an Immortal King is extremely difficult. Having hope is one thing, but Songqing Immortal didn't believe that Lin Yuan was already a tribulation-transcending celestial king. From the Unity Path stage to the Transcendence Tribulation stage, it is as vast as the heavens. Songqing Immortal had a deep understanding of this. Despite having overcome the mind and spirit tribulation and ranking as a half-step Immortal King, he knew deep down that there was no possibility of him becoming an Immortal King in this lifetime. At most, before the end of his lifespan, Songqing Immortal could attempt to transcend the bodily tribulation. Even if he failed, it would be within expectations. However, if this young one has already reached the half-step Immortal King, wouldn't that relieve some pressure off Huailong Palace? Suddenly, An idea struck Songqing Immortal. When he had negotiated with Lin Yuan, he agreed to allow the spread of martial Tao in the lower realms, and that martial Dao cultivators who reached the 6th rank could ascend to the spirit realm via the Ascension platform, as well as receive protection. In return, Lin Yuan would help the Dao Immortal sect once within his capabilities. Of course, Lin Yuan could refuse, and Songqing Immortal was quite lenient about this, as, after all, he had not given much. So be it. It has been a long time since I went out. This time I'll go see how that young one from back then is doing. Songqing Immortal slowly stood up, and his figure disappeared from its original spot. As for the large-scale decisive battle that Huailong Palace wanted to initiate, a battlefield of such scale required a lot of preparation time. It would not start within at least 10 years. Xianxia City. Martial Temple. The silhouette of Songqing Immortal appeared silently. Lifting the restrictions on martial Tao? Songqing Immortal glanced at the recent happenings inside Xianxia City and generally grasped the situation. Step by step, Songqing Immortal walked towards the depths of the martial temple. Around him lingered layers of illusionary realms. As a half-step immortal king who had passed the mind and spirit tribulation, if Songqing Immortal wished, it would be difficult for even someone at the 7th stage martial Tao peak like Li Qing to detect his presence. Having passed the mind and spirit tribulation, Songqing Immortal had greatly enhanced his soul, easily concealing and twisting others' perceptions. Seems like there's no change. Has that young one really returned? Songqing Immortal arrived at the martial temple hall, looked around casually, and didn't notice anything out of the ordinary. Just as Songqing Immortal was considering whether to reveal himself and inquire with Li Qing, the surrounding void became illusionary. Scenes unfolded layer by layer as Songqing Immortal reappeared outside Xianxia City, as if everything he had experienced was just an illusionary realm. What? Songqing Immortal's pupils constricted, and his heart was overwhelmed by a surge of emotions. Illusionary realm? He, a mighty half-step immortal king who had passed the mind and spirit tribulation, had unknowingly fallen into an illusionary realm? Although in terms of combat power, a half-step immortal king who had passed the mind and spirit tribulation was not as strong as one who had passed the bodily tribulation, when it came to mastering the soul illusion, a half-step immortal king who had passed the bodily tribulation could not hold a candle to one who had passed the mind and spirit tribulation. Now, however, Songqing Immortal had unwittingly experienced an illusionary realm. Were it not for the other party intentionally dispersing the illusionary realm, Songqing Immortal would probably still be immersed in it. This is terrifying. What kind of illusionary realm was that? Songqing Immortal's spirit trembled. To casually play with a half-step immortal king like him using a soul illusion, Songqing Immortal had a guess in his mind. Could it be? Songqing Immortal steadied his spirit and entered Xianxia City once again. This time, without using any skills, Songqing Immortal simply walked down the streets and eventually arrived behind the gates of the martial temple. Hesitating for a moment, Songqing Immortal spoke to the guardian. My name is Songqing, here to visit the martial ancestor. Come in, said the guardian as if he had already received the order, leading Songqing Immortal to stop in front of the martial temple hall. Songqing Immortal paused for an instant and eventually walked into the martial temple hall. The martial temple hall at this moment, compared to what Songqing Immortal had experienced before, was no different. The only change was that there was a figure sitting in the main seat. The figure was a young man. Although he was just sitting there, Songqing Immortal felt as if he was facing the vast spirit realm itself. It's been a long time. Lin Yuan looked at Songqing Immortal and slightly smiled. Are you really Jun Wuji? Songqing Immortal was momentarily stunned. If before, he had only speculated that a tribulation-transcending celestial king was within the martial temple, and that only an exalted immortal king could effortlessly make him fall into an illusionary realm without knowing, then now, upon seeing Lin Yuan, Songqing Immortal was almost certain of his earlier speculation, and that the tribulation-transcending celestial king was indeed that young one from before. Jun Wuji. You could say so, Lin Yuan nodded with a smile. Although in a different body, his true spirit consciousness was the same, making this similar to the reincarnation of a true immortal of the merged path. Jun Wuji. The name stirred tremors in Songqing Immortal's heart. Even though he had long regarded Jun Wuji as a genius of the immortal king seed level, facing the now truly immortal king Jun Wuji, Songqing Immortal still felt an inner tumult. Immortal king. That was a tribulation-transcending celestial king. Even those who were hopeful to become an immortal king, the seeds of an immortal king, We're only hopeful to become one. Perhaps, among dozens of immortal king seeds, there would be one who could become an immortal king, right? Take a seat. Don't just stand there. Lin Yuan said casually. When Songqing Immortal approached Xianxia city, Lin Yuan had already sensed him. Later, when he found out that Songqing Immortal intended to sneak into the martial temple undetected, Lin Yuan conveniently dragged him into the illusionary realm. It was a sort of greeting. Yes. No, I'd rather stand. Songqing Immortal quickly reacted, not daring to take a seat. What a joke. To sit with a tribulation-transcending celestial king? Songqing Immortal was acutely aware of his own status. He wasn't Lin Yuan's junior, nor had he conferred any significant favors on Lin Yuan. The only thing he did right was that over the years, he had always kept his promises, but that was what he ought to do. At this moment, Songqing Immortal felt immensely relieved. After Jun Dongjin and others ascended to the spirit realm thousands of years ago, some in the immortal sect voiced their opposition and wished to stop favoring the Jun family with resources. Back then, Songqing Immortal directly refused them. Firstly, the resources allocated to the Jun family were but a drop in the ocean for the Dao Immortal sect at that time, and Songqing Immortal didn't care about the myopic concerns of those people in the sect over such matters. Secondly, Songqing Immortal was still looking forward to Jun Wuji's ascension to the spirit realm. As time passed and after Songqing Immortal's unreserved refusals, other people in the sect dared not bring up the matter again. You have done well these years, Lin Yuan nodded. At least he did no injustice to the people of the Jun family, and had protected the martial Dao evolutionary path. It's my duty, Songqing Immortal immediately replied. From Lin Yuan's words, he realized that the other party knew all that he had done over the years. Because of this, Songqing Immortal was even more afraid. Had he made even a slight mistake back then, he would probably be facing the wrath of a tribulation-transcending celestial king right now. Indeed, such wrath was something that neither the entire Shenwang domain nor Dongyun Tao province could bear. Speak. What do you want me to help with? Lin Yuan asked directly. The Dao Immortal sect had treated the Jun family well and protected the martial path evolutionary path. As part of the negotiation conditions, he needed to lend a hand if it was within his power. What kind of help? Upon hearing this, Songqing Immortal's spirits suddenly surged. Almost instantly, Songqing Immortal thought of asking Lin Yuan to help him through the bodily tribulation. But as soon as this thought emerged, Songqing Immortal dismissed it. Whether it be mind tribulation or bodily tribulation, external forces had almost no effect. One had to rely on oneself. Otherwise, why would tribulation-transcending celestial kings be so rare in the spirit realm? Not to mention others, the offspring and friends of those kings should have been able to step into the stage of tribulation transcendence too. From this, one can deduce that even an immortal king could hardly interfere with bodily tribulation or mind tribulation. Even if one could intervene, it would come with a dire price, not in line with the within my power he had promised. I hope. Countless thoughts flashed through Songqing Immortal's mind. In his life, other than himself, the thing he cared most about was the Dao Immortal sect. Currently, the biggest crisis facing the Dao Immortal sect was the Huailong Palace. Against the Huailong Palace master who had transcended the bodily tribulation, Songqing Immortal couldn't think of any way to deal with him. I hope that the martial ancestor could intervene in the Huailong Palace matter. Songqing Immortal steadied his mind and spoke respectfully. Huailong Palace, huh? Lin Yuan nodded. Even if Songqing Immortal hadn't mentioned it, he wouldn't have let the Huailong Palace go. According to Li Qing, it was the mighty ones of Huailong Palace who had gravely injured Jun Dongjin back then, which led to his failed breakthrough later on. Lin Yuan rose to his feet and walked out of the martial temple hall. Songqing Immortal followed immediately. Martial ancestor, the Huailong Palace is a heritage of the Water Tribe's dragon descendants, and its master has the true dragon bloodline. He should have transcended the bodily tribulation. And there's the Zhejiang domain. It's said to be related to a tribulation-transcending dragon king. Songqing Immortal quickly briefed Lin Yuan on the strength of Huailong Palace. But halfway through, Lin Yuan interrupted him. He asked directly, "Where is Huailong Palace? Give me a direction." Chapter 467 Dragon Palace in the Palm. Please subscribe. In which direction is Huailong Palace? Songqing Immortal was stunned for a moment, not understanding the meaning behind Lin Yuan's words. Was he intending to personally visit Huailong Palace? Indeed. As a tribulation-transcending celestial king, once he personally arrived at Huailong Palace, even if that palace master were stubborn, he would have to bow his head obediently. In the vast spirit realm, no true immortal dared to defy the will of an immortal king. True immortals like Xianxia Immortal and Huailong Palace Master, though they claimed to be half-step immortal kings, were far from being an actual tribulation-transcending celestial king. Xianxia Immortal had passed the mental and soul tribulations, and his soul will was strong, but he was effortlessly toyed with by Lin Yuan, trapped in an illusionary realm without his knowledge. Of course, this was also because Lin Yuan was not an ordinary tribulation-transcending celestial king, but even the most common tribulation-transcending celestial king could deal with a half-step immortal king with just a thought. "It's over there." Xianxia Immortal immediately pointed out a location. Being a long-time rival of Huailong Palace, he naturally knew the exact location of their lair. The only issue was that Huailong Palace relied on the core water channels of the Jianghu domain, and even if a group of half-step immortal kings besieged it, they couldn't overcome it, making it as secure as a fortress. Therefore, even though Xianxia Immortal knew the location of their lair, there wasn't much he could do about it. In the large-scale battles between successive generations of Huailong Palace and Dao Immortal Sect, even if Dao Immortal Sect managed to repel Huailong Palace with the help of Xianwang Hall, it was hard to inflict real heavy damage on them, as those dragon-blooded true immortals would simply hide inside Huailong Palace whenever they found themselves losing. It was akin to standing on invincible ground. "Martial Ancestor, there's no need for you to go personally, just grant a celestial king's decree, and I can take it to Huailong Palace." Xianxia Immortal hesitated for a moment before speaking in a low voice. The celestial king's decree contained the breath of an immortal king, impossible to imitate, symbolizing the will of a certain immortal king. When the decree arrives, it's as if the immortal king himself has arrived. Huailong Palace, even with audacious courage, would not dare to defy the celestial king's decree. Although the Jianghu domain was the dragon transformation land of a tribulation-transcending dragon king from many ages ago, all water tribe dragon descendants within the Jianghu domain were, in theory, descendants of that dragon king. But who knows how many tens of thousands of years ago that old tale had taken place, and whether it was true or false remained unclear. Even if that dragon king did exist, he wouldn't risk offending another tribulation-transcending celestial king over a trivial matter. "No need for such trouble," Lin Yuan glanced at Xianxia Immortal and said indifferently. "Simply apprehend him." Having said that, Lin Yuan raised his right hand. Taiji forces of black and white intertwined at his fingertips, causing the space to distort slightly, and just one look at it gave Xianxia Immortal a splitting headache. It was too profound. It was too complex. With just the action of Lin Yuan's raised hand, Xianxia Immortal felt that the spatial mysteries head comprehended all his life were all contained within it, and they occupied only 1/10,000th or even 100,000th of the overall mystery. The remaining spatial profundities were far beyond Xianxia Immortal's reach. Has Martial Ancestor's mastery of spatial profundity actually reached this level? Xianxia Immortal was astounded within his heart, but no matter how painful his headache became, he still fixed his gaze on Lin Yuan's raised right hand. By observing a little longer, might there be a chance for enlightenment? Under Xianxia Immortal's watchful eye, Lin Yuan's raised right hand moved towards the direction he had just indicated, palm facing down, and lightly made a grabbing motion. Jianghu Domain. Huailong Palace. The Jianghu Domain consisted of 9 great rivers, each running through dozens of great realms before all converging within the Jianghu Domain. Because of this, the Jianghu Domain held a unique advantage, serving as the sacred land of the water tribe. Huailong Palace was a power forged by dragon descendants, connected to the core water channel of the entire Jianghu Domain. To breach Huailong Palace, one would have to break through the core water channel of the entire Jianghu Domain. It was this advantage that allowed Huailong Palace to thrive for millions of years. Even if they weakened at times, it didn't affect the overall situation, as they have always been one of the dominating powers of the Jianghu Domain. Inside Huailong Palace. The Huailong Palace master who had passed the bodily tribulation looked at the single-horned man before her and said with an icy voice, "Heavenly Dragon Nest also desires the essence of heavenly water?" Heavenly Dragon Nest was also an overlord-level power in the Jianghu Domain, on par with Huailong Palace. Strictly speaking, it was on par with the current Huailong Palace. Before the Palace Master had passed the bodily tribulation, Huailong Palace was slightly inferior to Heavenly Dragon Nest. Indeed, Dragon Lord has agreed to help you fully secure that strand of essence of heavenly water, but my Heavenly Dragon Nest wants half, said the single-horned man. Half? The Huailong Palace Master's face showed no expression. Her mind, however, was contemplating. Having passed the bodily tribulation, her strength had greatly increased, and she was confident she could repel Dao's immortal sect, and even Xianwang Hall behind them, with some confidence. But it was always better to be safe than sorry. The importance of the essence of heavenly water was well understood by Huailong Palace, Dao's immortal sect, and even more so by Xianwang Hall. The three major forces of Xianwang domain would definitely do everything to prevent her at all costs. They might even call friends and gather other half-step immortal kings from different great realms. In such a scenario, she would still feel some pressure, if she could join forces with Heavenly Dragon Nest. The Huailong Palace Master had already made her decision in her mind. In the past, Heavenly Dragon Nest had also approached her for cooperation, similarly expressing the intention to share half of the essence of heavenly water, but she flatly refused. Because at that time she had not passed the bodily tribulation, and her combat power was inferior to that of Heavenly Dragon Nest's Dragon Lord. If they cooperated rashly, she might end up having her palace swallowed by them. But now things were different. Having passed the bodily tribulation, she was not weaker than the Dragon Lord of Heavenly Dragon Nest. The cooperation between the two was on a nearly equal footing. 20%, the Huailong Palace Master said directly. Chapter 468 Dragon Palace in Hand, subscribe please. Understood. 2/10 is too low, said the Unicorn Man, his face somewhat unsightly. In the end, the two parties decided to split the essence of the heavenly water, with Huailong Palace taking 6/10 and the Heavenly Dragon Nest taking 4/10. With our two great forces joining hands, that Dao's immortal sect, that Xianwang domain, are nothing but chickens and dogs, the Unicorn Man said with a smile on his face. The Huailong Palace Master was also in a good mood. Although he had given away 4/10 of the essence of the heavenly water for nothing, with the promise of the full support of the Heavenly Dragon Nest, the confidence of Huailong Palace greatly increased, enough to deal with the oppression from the surrounding great realms half-step immortal kings. Just as the Unicorn Man was about to return to the Heavenly Dragon Nest to report the matter to the Dragon Lord, his expression suddenly changed. The Huailong Palace Master did the same, abruptly looking up to the sky. They saw the vast and boundless sky dimming unexpectedly. It wasn't dimming, it was a huge hand black and white, that had enshrouded the entire Huailong Palace. Who dares to be so presumptuous in front of my Huailong Palace? One by one, the true immortal level dragon descendants soared into the sky, attempting to shatter the hand that blocked out the sun. However, their true immortal level destructive spells fell on that enormous hand, failing to stir even a ripple. Thunderous booms. The enormous hand slowly descended, its fingers beginning to close, as if it was about to lift the Huailong Palace covering hundreds of thousands of miles. The sound of rushing water. The Huailong Palace Master transformed into a 10,000-foot true dragon directly, and the terrifying bloodline power suppressed all sides, hurtling towards the giant hand. A half-step immortal king who had transcended the bodily tribulation was naturally adept at fighting, not to mention possessing a true dragon bloodline. Such a strike, even a half-step immortal king like the Xianxia immortal would not dare to confront it head-on, choosing instead to flee far away. However, in the face of the slowly descending enormous hand, the full-force blow of the Huailong Palace Master had no effect at all, not even slightly delaying the hand's descent. From a great distance away, one could see that the entire Huailong Palace was not even a tenth of the size of the giant hand. The Huailong Palace Master, a half-step immortal king true dragon, appeared like a mere insect in front of it. This is bad. The Huailong Palace Master's face drastically changed, turning back into human form, attempting to retreat explosively, to leave the range of the giant hand's shadow. The fact that her full-force strike could not shake the hand at all made her realize she had no chance of stopping the hand. Thunderous booms. The Huailong Palace Master tried to use the power of space to teleport, but found that within the range of the hand, space had solidified, making it extremely difficult to even fly normally, let alone teleport. Whoosh. Realizing this, the Huailong Palace Master didn't hesitate to return to the Huailong Palace below. At this point, the only option was to resist the heavenly hand using the palace that connected to the core water vein of the Jianghu domain. A series of cracking sounds. The heavenly giant hand continued to tighten, and one by one, the barriers formed by the water veins shattered, powerless to resist. Finally, the entire Huailong Palace was directly uprooted by the giant hand. The hum of spatial energy. The heavenly giant hand and the abducted Huailong Palace vanished. They left behind a huge crater hundreds of thousands of miles wide, which existed where the dominating force of the Zhejiang domain, Huailong Palace, once stood. A moment later, a man in a golden dragon robe appeared outside the huge crater. Eyes wide and mouth agape. He looked at everything in front of him. What happened? How could the Huailong Palace have disappeared? This man in the golden dragon robe was none other than the Dragon Lord of the Heavenly Dragon Nest. The instant the heaven-covering giant hand appeared, its residual waves were the first to alert him. So he was the first to arrive. But upon arrival, he witnessed a scene he would never forget in his lifetime. How could such a massive Huailong Palace disappear right under the nose of the Zhejiang domain? How is that even possible? The disbelief of the golden-robed Dragon Lord was palpable. The Huailong Palace was merged with the water vein. An attack on the Huailong Palace was equivalent to attacking the core water vein of the Zhejiang domain. Just this fact alone was something that a Unity Path stage true immortal could not achieve, nor could a half-step immortal king. Not to mention uprooting the entire Huailong Palace in such a short period. It was utterly unbelievable. Tribulation transcending celestial king. The golden-robed Dragon Lord's thoughts quivered. The only being capable of doing this was the high and mighty tribulation-transcending Celestial King. In the core of Dongyun Tao Province's great realm, where Celestial King's artifacts were used for suppression, relying solely on Celestial King's artifacts might indeed breach Huailong Palace, but was also not enough to do so as crisply and cleanly as it had happened now. Has Huailong Palace offended a tribulation-transcending Celestial King? Fear gripped the heart of the golden-robed Dragon Lord, for as one of the dominant forces of the Zhejiang domain, if he had offended a tribulation-transcending Celestial King, would it potentially implicate the Zhejiang domain? Or even implicate his own heavenly dragon nest? Since that mysterious tribulation-transcending Celestial King could cause such a grand Huailong Palace to disappear, it indicated that he could make the heavenly dragon nest disappear as well. In essence, there was no difference between Huailong Palace and the heavenly dragon nest. The only variation was their locations. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. One true immortal after another from the Zhejiang domain appeared before the huge pit. Looking at the dark chasm, their hearts turned cold. The conclusions drawn by the golden-robed Dragon Lord could also be inferred by most true immortals. For to render Huailong Palace so powerless, incapable of any struggle, only the tribulation-transcending celestial kings who overlooked the spirit realm could do that. What should we do? Which celestial king did Huailong Palace actually offend? This Huailong Palace really deserves to die. Offending a celestial king is bad enough, but what if it implicates us? No way, no way. I've decided to relocate to another great realm. The Zhejiang domain is too dangerous now, under the watch of a certain celestial king. I'm also relocating. Let's do it together. The true immortals of the Zhejiang domain conversed among themselves, and many were planning to abandon their nests that they had operated for many years within the Zhejiang domain. Although living in the Zhejiang domain had been quite comfortable, what did that comfort amount to when compared with their own lives? They certainly did not wish to one day disappear suddenly like Huailong Palace did. Outside the martial temple hall, the Zongqing immortal intently watched Lin Yuan's outstretched right hand. Palm face downwards, he gently grasped. The next moment, Lin Yuan drew back his right hand, and the palm, previously facing downward, was now facing up. The Zongqing immortal blinked his eyes and suddenly realized that Lin Yuan's previously empty palm now somehow held a palace. The palace was extremely exquisite, and subtly terrifying powers flowed between the eaves and walls of the palace. This palace, why does it look so familiar? The Zongqing immortal's mind couldn't quite catch up, only feeling that the palace that had appeared in Lin Yuan's palm was strangely familiar. He had definitely seen it somewhere before. Roar. A series of tiny roaring sounds emerged from within the palace. Inside the palace, several tiny worms were trapped, as if bound by an invisible force, never able to burst out of the palace's confines. The Zongqing immortal's eyes widened the more he looked. If this palace were to be magnified 1,000,000,000 times, and those tiny worms as well, one would find that this palace was exactly the same as the Huailong Palace. And those tiny worms turned out to be the true immortals of dragon descent from Huailong Palace, especially that white worm, which, in terms of size and presence, surpassed all other worms by a great deal. It was none other than the bodily tribulation-transcended master of Huailong Palace. Once, this half-step immortal king who had been such a headache for the Zongqing immortal and even considered a great concern by the Xianwang Hall, was now trapped within the palace, like a true reptile. The Zongqing immortal's gaze was vacant. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind, a phrase Lin Yuan had said earlier, just directly capture it. At the time, the Congqing immortal thought Lin Yuan planned to send his followers to capture the core dragon descendants of Huailong Palace to be questioned. As a tribulation-transcending celestial king, Lin Yuan must have gathered some trusted subordinates. With the addition of several celestial kings' artifacts and other means, pressuring the many dragon descendants of Huailong Palace to surrender should not be a problem. However, the Congqing immortal was also puzzled. This action did not seem as swift as personally delivering Lin Yuan's celestial king's decree to command Huailong Palace. But since it was the martial ancestor's will, the Congqing immortal dared not ask too much. However, upon seeing that miniature Huailong Palace in Lin Yuan's hand, the Congqing immortal realized that Lin Yuan's just directly capture it meant exactly what the word suggested, without any implication or metaphor. He captured the entire Huailong Palace, the multitude of true immortal dragons, with a single grasp. Chapter 469 Immortal King's Demeanor, please subscribe. Within the Huailong Palace, numerous true immortal dragon descendants were filled with fear. After the initial confusion, these dragon descendants realized that the entity taking action against them was very likely a certain tribulation-transcending celestial king. If not a tribulation-transcending celestial king, who else could effortlessly suppress dozens of true immortal dragon descendants, as well as the half-step immortal king, the Huailong Palace master who had passed the bodily tribulation, as if lifting a light object? If not a tribulation-transcending celestial king, who could ignore the core water veins of the Zhejiang domain, treat the million-mile-large Huailong Palace as a plaything, and grasp it in the palm? Palace Master. When did we offend an immortal king? Yes, Palace Master. What exactly happened? A tribulation-transcending celestial king. What kind of being is that? And why would they bother to take action against ants like us? One after another, the true immortal dragon descendants looked toward the Huailong Palace master, asking anxiously. Although they were all trapped within the Huailong Palace, unable to go out, basic communication was still possible. The Huailong Palace master's expression was gloomy as she scanned the frightened true immortal dragon descendants. Her brows involuntarily furrowed deeply. How would she know when the Huailong Palace had offended a tribulation-transcending celestial king? Although the Huailong Palace acted domineeringly, it knew whom to target. Beings or powers with potential backing from an immortal king were definitely not to be offended but were well provided for instead. Which immortal king is it? Although the Huailong Palace master was also afraid, she realized that fear was meaningless. If the immortal king truly wanted to kill them, none of the dragon descendants would likely survive. The Huailong Palace master looked up toward the outside of the Huailong Palace. She immediately saw the colossal figure looming over them. The million-mile-large Huailong Palace was merely 1/10 the size of the figure's palm. Compared to this immense being, the Huailong Palace master felt incredibly insignificant, unable to even fully look up at Lin Yuan's complete form. This must be the immortal king who took action against my Huailong Palace. The Huailong Palace master had her suspicions. The other true immortal dragon descendants also saw Lin Yuan, but being too close, they couldn't see him in full, only confirming that this immortal king had a human form. Having a human form didn't necessarily mean belonging to the human race. Great immortal king, all beings of the Huailong Palace are willing to submit. The Huailong Palace master immediately said with utmost respect. She understood that the fate of the entire Huailong Palace depended on the whim of this mysterious immortal king before her. Submit. Lin Yuan smirked slightly. He then looked at the Congqing immortal beside him. What do you think? How do I see it? The Congqing immortal was trembling with fear, unsure why Lin Yuan was asking him at this time. That is. The Huailong Palace master looked to the side and immediately saw the Congqing immortal. Although to them he too was a monstrous figure, the perspective offered by the distance allowed them to vaguely make out his features. Is that Congqing? The Huailong Palace master's heart turned cold. Having warred with the Dao immortal sect for so many years, the Congqing immortal was all too familiar with her, and naturally, the Huailong Palace master was also very familiar with Congqing. Yet the more so, the more desperate the Huailong Palace master felt. The enmity between the Huailong Palace and the Dao immortal sect was too significant. They had fought for hundreds of thousands of years, causing countless casualties among their forces. Now that the Huailong Palace had fallen into the hands of the Congqing immortal, could there be any good outcome? Forget it. I'll decide. Lin Yuan noticed that the Congqing immortal dared not make a decision and his thoughts shifted slightly. In the palm of his hand, the Huailong Palace began to disintegrate, every substance, whether it was living or non-living, was reduced to the most basic origin source of essence. Eventually, it formed an essence pill the size of a thumb. Even for Lin Yuan, the essence pill refined from all the true immortal dragon descendants of the Huailong Palace, including the palace master, who was a half-step immortal king that had passed the bodily tribulation, as well as the palace itself, had an inconsequentially small effect. Although the Xianxia immortal dared not make a decision, Lin Yuan could still sense his intentions. That was to eradicate future troubles. Moreover, the Huailong Palace had significant karma with Jun Dongjin, as the former had severely wounded the latter, reducing his chances of breaking through to the Unity Path stage. So Lin Yuan never had any intention of sparing the Huailong Palace. The Huailong Palace is no more. The Xianxia immortal looked dazed, not from pity or sympathy, but because the Huailong Palace, with hundreds of thousands of years of heritage, had come to such a dramatically abrupt end. The power of the martial ancestor. The Xianxia immortal stealthily glanced at Lin Yuan's silhouette, growing ever more trembling inside. Above all, if an immortal king were to take action against the Huailong Palace, he indeed could achieve what Lin Yuan had done, breaking through numerous barriers, seizing the entire Huailong Palace. Various descriptions collected by the Dao Immortal sect about tribulation transcending celestial kings could corroborate this. But the precondition was that this tribulation transcending celestial king must be nearby the Huailong Palace, and not too far away. Only at such proximity could the full might of a tribulation transcending celestial king be exhibited. The farther the distance, the more dissipated the power of the same strike becomes. Not to mention that Lin Yuan was across two great realms when he effortlessly summoned the entire Huailong Palace. This involves not merely an issue of distance, but rather an insight into the essence of heaven and earth, along with mastery over the mysteries of space. In general, Lin Yuan's power seemed somewhat exceeding the standard, surpassing the limits of what a normal tribulation transcending celestial king could achieve. The Huailong Palace master from beginning to the end had no clue that she and the entire Huailong Palace had instantly traversed billions of miles to Martial Temple, which is why she thought Lin Yuan was a tribulation transcending celestial king. But the Xianxia immortal saw everything clearly. The Huailong Palace was originally located in the Jianghu domain, yet Lin Yuan had easily captured it. The little one from back then, upon our next meeting, not only became an immortal king but also within the ranks of immortal kings, can be considered. Chapter 470 Immortal King's Demeanor. Please subscribe. Understitute Xianxia immortal felt emotional and didn't know how to describe Lin Yuan. Whether it was an ordinary immortal king or a supreme immortal king, for him the difference was not significant, as either way, they were beings he couldn't look up to. As for the destruction of Huailong Palace, just speak the truth outwardly, Lin Yuan said indifferently. The meaning of this statement was that there was no need to hide that the mysterious immortal king who destroyed Huailong Palace was the martial ancestor. This decision was made by Lin Yuan after careful deliberation. As with his current strength, there was absolutely no need to hide his identity. Revealing part of his strength had many benefits. One was to greatly promote the martial Tao cultivation system. To let more cultivators embark on the path of the martial Tao. A cultivation system where the peak combat power is a true immortal compared to one where the peak combat power is an immortal king, belongs to entirely different concepts. As the martial ancestor, equal to a tribulation transcending celestial king, Lin Yuan, without saying more, at least proved that martial Tao is also a path that reaches to the heavens. Second, Lin Yuan had always wanted to contact the other tribulation transcending celestial kings of the spirit realm. But these celestial kings were either completely untraceable or too far away. Since that was the case, Lin Yuan decided to reveal his strength and actively attract those celestial kings to come to him. Yes, Xianxia immortal said respectfully. Passing a message, for the Dao Immortal sect, was not a difficult task. The destruction of the Huailong Palace caused a huge stir in the entire Dongyun Tao province, and even the nearby provinces were shaken by the news. It wasn't that the Huailong Palace had a huge influence. In fact, even if the Huailong Palace had obtained the essence of heavenly water, it still would have been hard for it to compare with the core domains of a province. The reason Huailong Palace caused such a big commotion was entirely because the being who acted against Huailong Palace was almost certainly a tribulation-transcending celestial king. The emergence of a tribulation-transcending celestial king could completely shake province after province, sparking discussions like a tsunami. Who exactly was the celestial king that took action? I'm also curious. It's just the Huailong Palace. A celestial king would just need to say the word, and I'd personally go to destroy it. Why would a celestial king need to act personally? In Dongyun Tao province, we finally have another celestial king. In the Xianwang domain, Dongyun Tao province, as well as many other provinces, numerous true immortals were abuzz. This was about a celestial king, after all. True immortals at the peak of the Unity realm, after centuries, would only have hoped to see one or two celestial kings if they traveled across 3,000 provinces. While numerous forces discussed the origins of that mysterious celestial king, a force from Xianwang domain named Dao'd Immortal Sect publicly declared that the mysterious celestial king who destroyed the Huailong Palace was none other than the ancestor of the martial temple. The news spread like a hurricane. The true identity of a tribulation-transcending celestial king. What crucial information this was. The ancestor of the martial temple? I have some impression of the martial temple, a cultivation system more focused on forging the physical body, and its strongest should only be comparable to a true immortal. A cultivation system like that, capable of producing a celestial king? Is that real? A martial temple limited to inside a city actually has a celestial king presiding over it? It shouldn't be fake. Even with immense gall, the Dao'd Immortal Sect wouldn't dare to fabricate the identity of a celestial king, right? Although many true immortals had doubts about the information, that the mysterious celestial king came from the martial temple, none dared to openly object. Absolutely joking. You might object to other great realm forces. What can they do to you? After all, separated by a great realm, even if they were half-step celestial kings, they would be unable to reach you. But to publicly doubt a celestial king. Across 3,000 provinces, even the most desolate places, if you run far enough, still cannot block a celestial king's malice. No more. I'm heading to Xianwang domain to pay a visit to that martial ancestor, a being on par with a celestial king. Me too. If the martial ancestor agrees to accept me as a disciple, I'm willing to forsake all my cultivation and follow the path of martial Tao cultivation. Accept you as a disciple? Do you not look in the mirror at yourself? That's a celestial king-level powerhouse adopting a disciple? Many true immortals from dozens of nearby provinces began heading towards Dongyun Tao province. True immortals at the peak of the Unity realm, the hope of meeting a celestial king was through such an occurrence, a celestial king revealing traces at a certain place, attracting numerous other true immortals to come from thousands of miles away. Compared to the true immortals drawn by reputation, numerous lower-level cultivators were even more thrilled. The martial Tao cultivation system can actually produce celestial king-level powerhouses? Just what I need. My spirit root aptitude is lacking, my potential in the immortal path limited. I've decided, I'm going to the martial temple to ask for apprenticeship. Yes, the martial Tao cultivation system is home to immortal king-level powerhouses. Becoming a martial Tao cultivator is far superior to joining those forces, most of which have never had an immortal king-level powerhouse. Martial Temple. Many martial Tao cultivators seemed bewildered. What? Our martial ancestor not only returned but also became an immortal king-level powerhouse and casually destroyed the Huailong Palace? This. Many cultivators who had just joined the martial temple suddenly felt as if blessings had fallen from the sky. Originally joining the martial temple meant they could not compete with the disciples of the Dao'd Immortal Sect and the Xianwang Hall. But now, it should be those disciples licking their wounds, shouldn't it? Outside Xianxia City, Jun Haiqiu, Jun Nangong, and Jun Yunxuan, three outstanding descendants of the Jun family, finally arrived at Xianxia City. Our Wuji ancestor became an immortal king? Jun Haiqiu and the others looked at each other. They weren't Songqing immortal. They had taken quite some time to get to Xianxia City from the Dao'd Immortal Sect. However, en route, they had received the news that the martial ancestor was now an immortal king-level powerhouse. Wuji ancestor, who disappeared for hundreds of thousands of years, has reappeared as an immortal king-level powerhouse? Why do I feel like I'm dreaming? The three descendants of the Jun family felt that happiness came too suddenly, too intensely, and was somewhat hard to bear. They had imagined Wuji ancestor to be very strong. After all, they had heard legends about him from childhood, but they thought he would be on par with the Songqing immortal at most. As for an immortal king, they never considered it. If it were easy to reach the status of an immortal king, the spirit realm's 3,000 Tao provinces wouldn't have so few immortal kings. Has Wuji ancestor become an immortal king, and might not want to see us? Jun Haiqiu asked hesitantly. That was an immortal king. High above all. overlooking the 3,000 Tao provinces. No matter what, he is still our ancestral patriarch of the Jun family. We should pay him a visit. Jun Nangong hesitated briefly, then made a decision. Now that they were in Xianxia City, even if they couldn't meet him, they still had to try. The fourth heaven. A purple-robed elder suddenly stopped. He glanced at the location of Dongyun Tao province below. Unexpectedly, even in such a remote Tao province, a fellow Taoist has emerged. The purple-robed elder was also a tribulation-transcending celestial king. The vast spirit realm had so few tribulation-transcending celestial kings that it was a rare occasion to see a fellow Taoist, naturally stirring his intention to visit. Martial Ancestor. I've not heard of this title before. Seems to be a newly ascended immortal king? The purple-robed elder surmised internally. The powerful immortal kings, such as the Supreme Immortal King, revered across the 3,000 Tao provinces. Even other immortal kings must display sufficient reverence. Martial Ancestor? The purple-robed elder, who considered himself well-informed and well-connected, had never heard of an immortal king by this title. Therefore, he believed it was a very reasonable guess that this martial ancestor had only recently ascended to the tribulation transcendent stage. Whoosh! The purple-robed elder appeared in an instant outside Xianxia City, stopping at a distant mountaintop. Let me see what kind of presence this newly ascended immortal king has. The purple-robed elder's eyes faintly emitted a purple light. After ascending to the tribulation transcendent stage, an immortal king's life begins to affect his surroundings, even linking with the heaven and earth of the spirit realm, hence revealing certain phenomena. Such phenomena, having no concrete form, are hard to observe, but the purple-robed elder cultivated a secret technique that could capture these kinds of immortal king phenomena to some extent. If it's a newly ascended immortal king, the phenomena should be small. Those veteran immortal kings, even the Supreme Immortal King, just their own phenomena can stir the 9 heavens. While thinking, the purple-robed elder observed the position of Xianxia City. The longer one cultivated during the tribulation transcendent stage, the stronger they became, the greater their influence on their surroundings, and thus the more terrifying the immortal king phenomena became. Almost like those wonders and anomalies in the 9 heavens. Through the immortal king phenomena, one could also somewhat judge the immortal king's strength. The more the purple-robed elder observed, the more noticeable his change in expression, ultimately revealing a look of shock. Chapter 471 The Long 300 Years, Subscription Wanted. Such an aura of an immortal king. The purple-robed elder gazed towards Xianxia City, or to be precise, at the vast expanse under the firmament above Xianxia City. To the eyes of a true immortal, there was nothing there, and even ordinary tribulation-transcending celestial kings would not notice anything amiss. But in the eyes of the purple-robed elder, a grand world was evolving, vast and boundless, and the breath it emitted was no weaker than the aura of an ordinary immortal king. The aura is actually that of a whole world. The purple-robed elder's mind trembled, as the aura of most immortal kings was the outer image of some object, such as a heavenly pillar or an ocean. But the grand world aura before him was not so much an aura as a collection of countless other auras. Martial Ancestor is definitely not a freshly ascended immortal king. The purple-robed elder collected his thoughts. How could the aura of a newly ascended immortal king be so grand? Although the aura of an immortal king is to some extent an indication of their strength, it's not absolute. But the grand aura the purple-robed elder was observing, how could an ordinary immortal king present such a display? Within the boundless world, many wonders were included. Even those who had cultivated for 1,000,000 years, the peak tribulation transcending celestial kings, could not achieve such a feat. Only a supreme immortal king, one in full control of the power of creation, could condense such a level of an aura. The purple-robed elder took a deep breath. There are 2 types of tribulation stage celestial kings. One is the regular immortal king, which includes the newly ascended immortal kings, ordinary immortal kings, veteran immortal kings, and peak immortal kings. The difference in strength among these 4 levels largely depends on their control of the power of creation. However, the gap is not too large. Even a peak immortal king would have difficulty killing a newly ascended immortal king. By the transcendence tribulation stage, after overcoming the bodily and mind tribulations and mastering the power of creation, an immortal king's ability to protect themselves becomes extraordinarily strong, and escaping if they can't win is not much of a problem. The second type of tribulation transcending celestial king is the supreme immortal king. A supreme immortal king has mastered the full extent of the power of creation, and some have even grasped more than one type of power of creation. The strength of a supreme immortal king has almost no limit, and for some of the ancient ones, killing a peak immortal king is not too troublesome. Therefore, even among tribulation-stage celestial kings, supreme immortal kings are absolutely not to be trifled with and are to be revered. Of course, the number of supreme immortal kings is pitifully small, and only a few, like the supreme immortal king, have a renowned reputation. To think that martial ancestor might actually be a supreme immortal king? The purple-robed elder's scalp tingled, but he couldn't help but feel curious. In this world, everything leaves a trace, especially supreme immortal kings. Becoming a supreme immortal king is not something that can be achieved through seclusion alone. It requires interaction with the outside world, venturing through many secret realms. The growth trajectory of any supreme immortal king cannot be completely secret. But martial ancestor. The purple-robed elder thought himself well-learned but had never heard of a supreme immortal king associated with martial. Could it be that one of those undying beings from the prehistoric era has re-emerged? The purple-robed elder speculated secretly. Long ago, the spirit realm experienced a historical discontinuity. Before the discontinuity was the prehistoric era. It is said that during the prehistoric era of the spirit realm, it was immensely glorious. Immortal king-level beings roamed the universe, but due to a shocking upheaval, many immortal kings fell, leading to the current era of the 3,000 Taoist states. The purple-robed elder's speculation about Lin Yuan could only be attributed to the prehistoric era. Otherwise, he could not explain the sudden emergence of a supreme immortal king. Better slip away. Whether or not it's a supreme immortal king from the prehistoric era, it's better not to get too close. Before understanding the character of the supreme immortal king, the purple-robed elder immediately planned to keep his distance. If Lin Yuan were merely a newly ascended immortal king, or a veteran or peak immortal king, he would not mind interacting with him. But a supreme immortal king, who might be from the prehistoric era, was something the purple-robed elder dared not approach lightly. The stronger one is, the more clearly they understand the terror of a supreme immortal king, especially those from the glorious prehistoric era. Let's go. The purple-robed elder turned to leave. But in the next moment, he froze in place. Because a figure had appeared not far away, at some unknown time, facing away from him with hands clasped behind his back. It's martial ancestor. The purple-robed elder's scalp exploded, knowing that only martial ancestor could have appeared beside him undetected, something not even a peak immortal king could achieve. I have seen martial ancestor, the purple-robed elder said immediately with slight respect. Since martial ancestor appeared here, it was a clear sign that he had been discovered, and it was obviously too late to run now. Lin Yuan glanced at the purple-robed elder and felt quite satisfied. He had revealed part of his strength not only to promote the martial Tao cultivation system, but also to attract other tribulation-transcending celestial kings, so as to gain true upper-level information about the spirit realm. The spirit realm is vast. The 3,000 Taoist states are just a small part of it. If Lin Yuan were to search for those tribulation-transcending celestial kings himself, it would probably take a lot of time. Instead of doing that, why not wait for them to come to him? The moment the purple-robed elder approached Xianxia city, Lin Yuan was aware of him. As the purple-robed elder was observing the aura of martial ancestor, Lin Yuan was also observing the purple-robed elder. Although he did not know what method the purple-robed elder used, in that instant, Lin Yuan had a vague feeling of being watched. This scrutiny was only the most superficial kind, far from detecting the core of Lin Yuan, but it was still rare. Chapter 472 The Long 300 Years, Subscription Wanted, Under 2. I do not know what matters the martial ancestor has for me to attend to, but rest assured, I will follow them, the elder in the purple robe took the initiative to say. Although he did not know the ultimate purpose of the martial ancestor, his presence surely meant more than a mere meeting. I shall ask you a few questions, Lin Yuan said casually. Please ask, martial ancestor. As long as I know, I will withhold nothing. The elder in the purple robe let out a slight sigh of relief. Not just a few questions. Even if there were hundreds, he would not hesitate. Where do most celestial kings in the tribulation stage stay? Lin Yuan asked directly. Up till now, traces of tribulation-transcending celestial kings have rarely been seen across the 3,000 Tao provinces. Not only in Dongyun Tao province, but even in several core Tao provinces, there are at most legacies left by immortal king-level beings. In other Tao provinces, there are occasionally rumors of celestial kings, but just rumors. For instance, the Zhejiang domain is rumored to be the place of dragon transformation of a certain tribulation-transcending dragon king. As for the celestial king-level powerhouses themselves, they are still nowhere to be seen. This fact made Lin Yuan somewhat astonished. Although tribulation-transcending celestial kings are rare, they have long lifespans, and although it might be difficult to birth one in an era, over successive eras, there surely must be some. Where are all the celestial kings? This question from Lin Yuan made the elder in the purple robe's heart skip a beat. He became more certain that Lin Yuan was definitely a supreme immortal king from the prehistoric era. Otherwise, how could he possibly not know even this basic common sense? Generally speaking, those who could ask this question were mostly newly ascended celestial kings, and those without any background at that. Otherwise, if they had an immortal king-level elder, how could they have no knowledge about this? But Lin Yuan was clearly not a newly ascended celestial king, and although the elder in the purple robe had not seen Lin Yuan take action, he had long regarded him as a certain supreme immortal king. Having the strength of a supreme immortal king while being ignorant of the affairs of this era. If he was not an old monster from the prehistoric era, what else could he be? Thinking this, the elder in the purple robe grew even more respectful. He did not know much about the prehistoric era, just that a cataclysmic calamity had occurred, causing even some supreme immortal kings to fall. A supreme immortal king who could survive from that era must be one of the exceptional ones among supreme immortal kings. Responding to the martial ancestor, in the current era, most celestial kings in the tribulation stage linger primarily in two places, he said. One is the barren lands outside the 3,000 Tao provinces. Though dilapidated and nowhere near as prosperous as the 3,000 Tao provinces, they contain traces from the prehistoric era, which are of great help to us ordinary celestial kings. The elder in the purple robe slightly paused after mentioning prehistoric era, stealing a glance at Lin Yuan who seemed unmoved. The barren lands outside the 3,000 Tao provinces? Lin Yuan pondered. He had once explored the barren lands with his primordial spirit but found nothing of note and hence disregarded it. The second is the 9 heavens, but for us celestial kings, there isn't much stir till the 5th heaven. It's only from the 5th heaven onwards that there begins some usefulness, but the 5th heaven is hard to climb. Generally, only peak celestial kings or supreme immortal kings can ascend, the elder in the purple robe continued. I see, Lin Yuan nodded slightly. Since the transformation of the force of Taiji, the fusion of the Taiyin divine spirit and Taiyang divine spirit into the Taiji primordial spirit, he also had the invincible power of the 8th layer, which was the level of a supreme immortal king. He had already climbed the 5th heaven, but so far, he had yet to encounter any celestial king. After all, the 5th heaven is vast and boundless, even for a supreme immortal king, being there was like a drop of water in the ocean. Furthermore, Lin Yuan's Taiji primordial spirit was observing various marvels and phenomena of the 5th heaven, comprehending them with his against heaven's understanding, not specifically searching for other celestial kings. It was natural not to encounter any. It is said that the 9th layer of heaven holds great secrets related to the end of the prehistoric era, and all supreme immortal kings wish to enter the 9th layer of heaven. The elder in the purple robe seemed to remember something and immediately said. Lin Yuan's expression did not change upon hearing this. He had also heard of the legends concerning the 9th layer of heaven. The 9 heavens of the spirit realm were accessible even to Unity realm true immortals, and it wasn't a particularly hidden matter. There's been a saying since ancient times related to the 9 heavens of the spirit realm. Beyond man, there is another man. Beyond heaven, there are higher heavens. Above the 9th heaven, there are celestial beings. This 9th heaven here is the 9th layer of heaven, and the celestial beings are not specifically explained. Following that, Lin Yuan asked a few more questions. Mostly rather simple matters of common knowledge. Like how many supreme immortal kings were there in this era and so on. As the elder in the purple robe grew increasingly fearful, he naturally told him everything he knew. One last thing. Lin Yuan looked toward the elder in the purple robe and spoke. Please speak, martial ancestor. The elder in the purple robe immediately responded, not daring to hesitate. I heard that tribulation stage celestial kings all wield some kind of power of creation. What type of power of creation do you wield? Lin Yuan asked. Through close contact with the elder in the purple robe, Lin Yuan was very certain that the latter had not developed an inner world. Yet, the elder's strength, as perceived by Lin Yuan, was not inferior to an 8th layer evolver from the main world. Without the reliance on an inner world, yet able to rival an 8th layer evolver who possesses an inner world, the key, he estimated, must lie in the power of creation wielded by the celestial kings. Martial ancestor, the power of creation that I wield is called innate purple chi. The elder in the purple robe stretched out his right hand, and strands of purple chi were swirling around his fingertips. Lin Yuan examined carefully. Could you give me a strand? If martial ancestor desires it, naturally I can, the elder in the purple robe replied somewhat perplexed, but as a tribulation-transcending celestial king who controlled a part of the power of creation, giving away a strand was beyond simple. All right. You can go now. If there is anything, I will contact you. Lin Yuan put away a strand of the innate purple chi from the elder in the purple robe and spoke in a calm voice. Yes. The elder in the purple robe breathed a sigh of relief, bowed to Lin Yuan again, and quickly turned and left. At a location many tens of thousands of miles from Xianxia city, the elder in the purple robe revealed himself, finally feeling relieved. It seems martial ancestor isn't one of those bloodthirsty supreme immortal kings. The elder in the purple robe was somewhat unsettled, recalling how some supreme immortal kings from the prehistoric era were fond of hunting immortal king-level beings. Martial ancestor asked many questions about the supreme immortal kings of this era. Could there be another purpose? After settling his thoughts, the elder began to ponder. He speculated that perhaps martial ancestor aimed to recreate the glory of the prehistoric era? Regardless of martial ancestor's intentions, I must seize this opportunity. The elder had made up his mind, for he had received a way to contact martial ancestor before their separation. This meant that martial ancestor allowed him to make contact. Being able to contact a supreme immortal king, especially one from the prehistoric era, was an incredible opportunity. Initially, the elder in the purple robe planned to steer clear of martial ancestor, not knowing the character of the supreme immortal king. He worried that if he encountered one of those bloodthirsty supreme immortal kings, it would be like jumping into a pit. But now, through brief interaction, the elder felt he somewhat understood martial ancestor. Although his knowledge wasn't deep, he was aware that martial ancestor was likely not one of those who killed indiscriminately. Martial temple. Lin Yuan returned to his cave dwelling inside. Prehistoric era? And the 9th layer of heaven? In the elder's responses, the greatest reactions were to these words, revealing waves of reverent fear. Never mind. We'll talk about this later. Lin Yuan no longer focused on it. Whether it was the prehistoric era or the 9th layer of heaven, these were not Lin Yuan's most pressing concerns at the moment. What Lin Yuan really wanted to confirm now was the power of creation wielded by the elder in the purple robe. Innate purple chi. Lin Yuan lifted his right hand, and a strand of purple chi appeared. Exactly the strand that the elder in the purple robe had left. This aura, Lin Yuan observed carefully, feeling intently, and ultimately concluded. This strand of innate purple chi actually had similarities to the cosmic force he wielded, the force of Taiji. Chapter 473 The Long 300 Years 2. The title of the previous chapter was wrong, the content wasn't affected. This is actually a cosmic force? Lin Yuan observed repeatedly and finally came to a conclusion. The innate purple chi mastered by the elder in the purple robe was, in the main world, a cosmic force that only an invincible being at the 8th layer could control. So that's how it is. Lin Yuan fell silent for a moment, suddenly enlightened. No wonder the tribulation-transcending celestial kings of the spirit realm, without the support of an inner world, could rival the evolvers of the 8th layer in the main world. The world force emanating from the inner world of the 8th layer evolvers allowed human evolvers to catch up with those innate, powerful special life forms. There are few forces at the same level that can match the amplification of world force on evolvers. But cosmic force is definitely one of them. Even the surge in combat power caused by cosmic force is above that of world force. The innate purple chi of the elder in the purple robe, being only partly mastered, could once perfected, even without the world force, rival the peak evolvers of the 8th layer. Those supreme immortal kings without an inner world, yet able to rival the invincibles of the 8th layer, must possess a power of creation that definitely belongs to a higher cosmic force. Lin Yuan thought to himself. The invincible ones of the 8th layer in the main world also vary in strength. Though the strongest cannot defeat the weakest, they can still suppress them, and the difference lies in the different cosmic forces. Some cosmic forces are simply stronger than others, and the former are known as higher cosmic forces. Opportunity. This is the greatest opportunity of my travel through the realms. Lin Yuan's eyes shone brightly. What was the greatest help that his 8th traversal brought him? Was it opening the 8th stage martial Tao? No. The 8th layer part could be perfected anywhere. Even without traversing realms, given time in the main world, Lin Yuan could still achieve it. Comprehending the rule model of space? There was no difference from opening the 8th stage martial Tao. It was not exclusive to the spirit realm. Before knowing that the power of creation wielded by the immortal kings was equivalent to cosmic force, traversing to the spirit realm saved Lin Yuan time and allowed for references to the immortal cultivation system and other systems. But now, having confirmed the essence of the power of creation, Lin Yuan was utterly sure that the power of creation was his greatest gain. It was irreplaceable, an unparalleled gain. In the main world universe starry sky, every cosmic force is unique, incapable of being replicated or simulated. Once a being grasps a certain cosmic force, no other life can grasp that same force. This is a rule from the main world. Here, rule is not about gold, wood, water, fire, earth, thunder, light, and other such rules. It refers to the restrictions from the main world. Just like below the Supreme Being, all life has a limit to its lifespan. This is also a rule of the main world. And in the cosmic starry skies, the fastest speed is the speed of light. Surpass it and you enter wormholes. This too is a rule of the main world. The restrictions of the main world do not apply in the spirit realm, at least not to cosmic forces. The spirit realm is much more lenient. There's no rule that a certain power of creation can only be wielded by one tribulation-transcending celestial king. Lin Yuan's mind was slightly thrilled, meaning he could completely grasp a great number of powers of creation in the spirit realm. Then, upon returning to the main world, these powers would collectively transform into cosmic forces. The main world's starry sky races have a long history, birthing many invincible beings at the 8th layer, but the vast majority of them master only one cosmic force. A very few, due to various accidents, have mastered 2 cosmic forces, which is already the limit. For a normal 8th layer powerhouse, there are 2 goals. One is to step into the 9th rank, or to master some cosmic force. But for an invincible at the 8th layer, there is only one goal, and that is to step into the 9th rank. Only by breaking through to the 9th rank can one extend life, and continuing to contemplate other cosmic forces is, aside from being foolish or not, the key question is, can they really grasp it? Grasping each cosmic force contains an element of luck. There's no fixed direction. How can you be sure that the direction you choose will lead to a cosmic force? This is precisely why Lin Yuan was excited. If he hadn't discovered the essence of the power of creation, even if he knew that the spirit realm didn't have as many restrictions on cosmic force, he wouldn't have had any other ideas. To grasp more cosmic forces? Keep in mind that before fully understanding the Taiyang and Taiyang rules, even Lin Yuan didn't know that the Taiji force would be a cosmic force. Even with the against heaven's understanding, grasping the next cosmic force would waste a lot of time, causing his other pursuits to slow or even stop. But now, with a clear path to pursue the power of creation, all Lin Yuan needed to do was like delving into the evolution path. Spend time contemplating and sensing it. Grasping a power of creation in the spirit realm and returning to the main world meant having a unique cosmic force. Innate purple chi. The human civilization's records of many invincible beings at the 8th layer do not mention anyone possessing this cosmic force. Lin Yuan thought to himself, though it was also possible that an invincible being of the 8th layer not recorded in history possessed the innate purple chi cosmic force. But the likelihood was low, and Lin Yuan's goal was not just to understand the innate purple chi cosmic force. He planned to go through all the powers of creation possessed by other tribulation-transcending celestial kings. Human civilization's interpretation of cosmic force is greatly helpful for stepping into the 9th rank in the future. Theoretically, the more cosmic forces one masters, the greater this help, but this is not emphasized much because it remains theoretical. Lin Yuan silently reflected. Chapter 474 The Long 300 Years 2. The title of the previous chapter was wrong, but the content is unaffected. _2 normal 8th layer evolvers, even the most talented and exceptional, can at most master one type of cosmic force, or at most, 2. As for more, that has never happened before. Because it's unrealistic. Comprehending a certain power of creation is very difficult for other immortal kings. They would rather deepen their understanding of the power of creation they have already mastered with the time they have, but I have against heaven's understanding, it's just a matter of time. Lin Yuan had a smile on his face. He had already imagined the scenario. By the time he returned to the main world, mastering dozens of cosmic forces and adding the amplification from his vast inner world that far surpassed the constraints of human evolvers. He might even have the chance to arm wrestle with 9th-rank powerhouses. Throughout history, even the most invincible 8th-layer beings could at most preserve their lives against 9th-rank powerhouses, let alone arm wrestle? That was seeking death. Because the way an invincible 8th-layer being preserved their life in front of a 9th-rank powerhouse was to hang on without dying for a while, and then wait for rescue from a 9th-layer powerhouse of the same race. Under normal circumstances, 8th-layer invincibles had no capacity to resist against those of the 9th layer. First, I need to fully comprehend this wisp of innate purple qi. Lin Yuan collected his thoughts and began to observe the wisp of purple qi before him seriously. Your understanding is against heavens, you gaze upon the mysterious breath, beginning to attempt full comprehension. Your understanding is against heavens, you gaze upon the mysterious breath, beginning to attempt full comprehension. Your understanding is against heavens, you gaze upon the mysterious breath, beginning to attempt full comprehension. According to Lin Yuan's perception of the innate purple qi, this cosmic force was just an ordinary one, incomparable to higher cosmic forces. The Taiji force he controlled should be considered a higher cosmic force, simultaneously accommodating two extreme rules, whether for attack or defense, it's nearly perfect. Xianxia City. As a common city within the Xianwang domain, recently a large number of true immortal-level powerhouses, and even half-step immortal king-level powerhouses, have come, eager to see the martial ancestor in person. Whenever there is a trace of a tribulation-transcending celestial king, it draws numerous powerful individuals. Whether they can meet the immortal king or not, it's worth approaching first. Many pinnacle true immortals and half-step immortal king-level powerhouses have been stuck at their current bottleneck for tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years. Seclusion doesn't hold much significance. Instead of wandering aimlessly, it's better to seek out the traces of immortal kings. There's nothing to lose anyway. If it sparks some insight, it would be cause for great joy. If not, it's within expectations. That's why. Now, Xianxia City has gathered a large number of true immortals and half-step immortal kings. Ordinary cultivators walking on the street might come across a renowned half-step immortal king. And these true immortals and half-step immortal kings are extremely low profile in Xianxia City, as after all, they are under the watchful eye of an immortal king, and no powerful individual dares to disturb the peace. Entrance of the martial temple. 3 figures walked out. So many true immortals. I've never seen so many true immortals in my life. Xianxia and the other junior members of the Jun family opened their eyes wide, looking towards the profoundly deep auras within Xianxia City. The Daoed Immortal Sect, as one of the 3 giants of the Xianwang domain, only had dozens of true immortals stationed, but there seem to be hundreds of thousands of them now in Xianxia City. And that doesn't include those half-step immortal kings. Moreover, as time passed, more and more true immortals and half-step immortal kings kept on arriving. In a great realm like the Xianwang domain, there are typically several hundred true immortal-level powerhouses, and Xianwang domain is just one of the thousands of great realms in Dongyun Tao province. The Wuxia ancestor, as an immortal king, has attracted the attention of true immortals from dozens of surrounding provinces, hundreds of Tao provinces. Hundreds of thousands of true immortals? The number of true immortals arriving next is estimated to exceed 1 million. Jun Nangong said softly. 1 million true immortals. Jun Yunshuan swallowed nervously. If it weren't for the Wuxia ancestor, how could we possibly stand here now? Jun Haiqiu said with emotion. They had come to visit the martial ancestor and had soon met Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan told them to stay at the martial temple for a while, and would find time to give them some guidance when he was free. That was why the 3 of them could come and go from the martial temple with such ease. Such treatment would probably make those half-step immortal king powerhouses outside jealous. Being able to freely enter and leave the martial temple is equivalent to feeling the breath of the martial ancestor up close, which is a great honor for those half-step immortal kings. Staying in close proximity to an immortal king is also a huge opportunity for them. Inside the cave dwelling, Lin Yuan was sitting cross-legged. Orange-yellow flames burned continuously within his body. Lin Yuan's physical body began to collapse, turning to ash that fell away after an unknown amount of time. In the blink of an eye, blood rebirth operated, and Lin Yuan's physical body rapidly recovered, coming back once again. I can feel it. I'm almost done completely absorbing the orange-yellow liquid. Lin Yuan's eyes were slightly closed as he felt the enhancements to his body and inner world. Now, Lin Yuan's inner world was 6. 5 times larger than that of a normal 8th layer evolva. Aside from the 33 times increase provided by the crimson liquid, the orange-yellow liquid had brought Lin Yuan's enhancement up to 2 times. This was extremely close to the maximum enhancement limit of the orange-yellow liquid, 33 times. I should be close to encountering the third type of liquid, Lin Yuan thought silently. However, in the process of absorbing the first 2 types of liquids, my divine skill blood rebirth has also been exercised and enhanced. A smile emerged on Lin Yuan's face. As a physical body divine ability, blood rebirth could also be strengthened, albeit at an exceedingly slow rate. However, after thousands, even tens of thousands of times of absorbing the liquids from the mysterious gourd, causing the collapse and then recovery of his physical body, blood rebirth was naturally able to be strengthened. This is good. It saves me having to go through the process again after I return to the main world. Lin Yuan was in a good mood. In the spirit realm, it took Lin Yuan a full 100 years to fully absorb the orange-yellow liquid. But with this 100-year enhancement of the physical body divine ability, blood rebirth, Lin Yuan would need, at most, only a few days to completely absorb the orange-yellow liquid upon returning to the main world. Because Lin Yuan had greatly elevated his comprehension of blood rebirth, he could withstand the burning of the orange-yellow flames for a longer period, the same being true in the main world. The 9 heavens. The 7th layer of heaven. The Taiji primordial spirit ascended, surveying his surroundings. I'll start with the 7th layer of heaven to see if I can encounter an immortal king. After learning that the power of creation wielded by the immortal kings was equivalent to the cosmic force of the main world, Lin Yuan was extremely enthusiastic about finding other immortal king-level powerhouses. Especially the existence at the level of a supreme immortal king, whose power of creation could be equivalent to that of a higher cosmic force. Comprehending such a higher cosmic force would aid Lin Yuan enormously once he stepped into the 9th rank, giving him more than 10 times the benefit than from comprehending ordinary cosmic forces. Given the limited time, Lin Yuan naturally focused on comprehending higher cosmic forces. This layer of heaven. Lin Yuan released his senses, trying to spread them in all directions as much as possible. Lin Yuan's eyes brightened as he detected the breath of an immortal king. Whoosh! He headed straight towards the immortal king. Moments later, Lin Yuan stopped. Looking ahead, he saw a towering burly figure standing before him, closely observing a spectacle similar to a black hole in the distance. What's this? Lin Yuan observed the towering figure, who was carrying a huge axe. Merely sitting there, the aura emanating from the axe felt as though it could split open countless worlds. Is this the open heaven immortal king? Does he wield the power of opening the heavens? Lin Yuan was slightly shaken. Among the many pieces of information provided by the purple-robed elder, the open heaven immortal king's destructive power could rank in the top 3 among the supreme immortal kings of this era, and his power of opening the heavens could nearly cleave apart anything. As if sensing someone's gaze, the towering figure of the open heaven immortal king glanced at Lin Yuan. Open heaven immortal king? Lin Yuan walked up with a smile. A short while later, Lin Yuan stored away a strand of the power of opening the heavens and left contentedly. As a fellow supreme immortal king, it was not too difficult to request a strand of the power of opening the heavens for study, as long as he showed goodwill. Of course, Lin Yuan also offered his Taiji power in exchange. Having never appeared in the spirit realm before, the Taiji power piqued the open heaven immortal king's curiosity, and he agreed readily and promptly. Just like that, Lin Yuan's Taiji primordial spirit remained in the 7th layer of heaven, studying the powers of creation of many immortal kings. 300 years flew by in the blink of an eye. Chapter 475 The Temptation of the 9th Layer of Heaven. Please subscribe. Marvels filled the 7th layer of heaven as a figure descended. We're here, Lin Yuan smiled looking at a celestial king seated cross-legged in the distance, quietly sitting there, the void around him being invisibly affected, becoming exceptionally stable, allowing even ordinary people to survive. It should be known that even the 1st layer of heaven required at least the combat power of a true immortal to enter. Life forms below the level of true immortals rashly ascending, without the protection of true immortal level powerhouses, simply could not withstand the pressure from between the layers of heaven. It was like this even for the 1st layer of heaven, let alone the 7th layer of heaven. Normally, only a supreme immortal king could reside permanently in the 7th layer of heaven. Supreme immortal king, Lin Yuan carefully observed the celestial king, one of the most renowned kings among the 3,000 provinces. The Supreme Immortal King was a Supreme Immortal King, and within the 3,000 provinces, there was one specifically named the Supreme Tao Province, the place where the Immortal King's teachings were passed down. Lin Yuan had once instructed people from the Martial Temple to collect numerous immortal path skills, including the Supreme Jade Purity Immortal Scripture, which was created by the Supreme Immortal King himself and intentionally disseminated. In terms of killing power, the Supreme Immortal King is not as good as the Open Heaven Immortal King, but in terms of overall strength, the two should be on the same level, Lin Yuan secretly said to himself. Among the Supreme Immortal Kings, there were strengths and weaknesses. Some Supreme Immortal Kings who possessed a complete power of creation were stronger than other Supreme Immortal Kings, and some even controlled several complete powers of creation. Compared to the restriction of lifespan imposed on 8th layer invincibles in the main world, the Supreme Immortal Kings of the Spirit Realm could almost be said to exist alongside the Spirit Realm, with ample time to comprehend various powers of creation. Martial Ancestor. The Supreme Immortal King opened his eyes, looked towards Lin Yuan, and greeted him with a smiling expression. In the past 300 years, although Lin Yuan had never officially made a move, the Supreme Immortal Kings, with their perception, were basically aware of Lin Yuan's unfathomably deep strength. Thus, whether it was the Open Heaven Immortal King, the Supreme Immortal King, or other Supreme Immortal Kings, they were all willing to make his acquaintance. Over the years, Lin Yuan made acquaintance with quite a few Supreme Immortal Kings. Those who were able to stay in the 7th layer of heaven were all Supreme Immortal Kings, and Lin Yuan proactively approached each one for communication, attempting trades for the powers of creation in their control. Open Heaven asked me to check with you. How are the preparations going? Lin Yuan looked at the Supreme Immortal King and spoke. I am ready. The Supreme Immortal King's expression became solemn as he seriously said. Those old-timers from the prehistoric era who refused to die, they've hogged the 8th layer of heaven for so long, it's about time they made some room. 4 ordinary tribulation transcending celestial kings like the man in the purple robe. It was difficult to get involved with matters related to the prehistoric era. But to the eyes of Supreme Immortal Kings, the prehistoric era was no secret. Since the fall of the prehistoric era and the start of the era of the 3,000 provinces, those Supreme Immortal Kings who survived from the prehistoric era have occupied the 8th layer of heaven. And they forbade Supreme Immortal Kings born in the era of the 3,000 provinces from ascending. Therefore, all this time, Supreme Immortal Kings born in the era of the 3,000 provinces, like Open Heaven Immortal King and Supreme Immortal King, have continuously tried to attack the 8th layer of heaven, aiming to explore the 9th layer of heaven. Whether from the prehistoric era or the era of the 3,000 provinces, all Supreme Immortal Kings were clear about one thing. That is, the 9th layer of heaven held a profound secret. There are people beyond people, heavens beyond heavens, and above the 9 heavens are celestial beings. This phrase was no rumor. The celestial beings here, it is rumored, might be existences that transcend the level of an immortal king. The end of the prehistoric era also related to the 9th layer of heaven. All Supreme Immortal Kings longed immensely for the 9th layer of heaven. However, for the time being, the path to the 9th layer of heaven, the 8th layer of heaven, was occupied by those Supreme Immortal Kings from the prehistoric era. How could the Supreme Immortal Kings from the era of the 3,000 provinces just stand by and watch? So for millions of years, every few 100,000 years, Supreme Immortal Kings like Open Heaven Immortal King attempted to invade the 8th layer of heaven. And just now, the preparations mentioned by Lin Yuan were for Supreme Immortal Kings like the Open Heaven Immortal King to once again attack the 8th layer of heaven. Of course, up to now, those Supreme Immortal Kings from the prehistoric era still held the advantage, and the plans of Immortal Kings like Open Heaven to invade the 8th layer of heaven had all failed. The prehistoric era. Lin Yuan's eyes narrowed slightly. His joining forces with the Open Heaven Immortal King and the Supreme Immortal King, and other Supreme Immortal Kings wasn't just for the 9th layer of heaven. It was more about the powers of creation held by those Supreme Immortal Kings from the prehistoric era. In the past 300 years, Lin Yuan had almost gathered a thread of the power of creation controlled by all Supreme Immortal Kings from the current era. But he had not had much contact with those from the prehistoric era. After leaving the Supreme Immortal King, Lin Yuan returned to his own residence in the 7th layer of heaven. I have made significant progress in these 300 years. Lin Yuan sat cross-legged, especially in the comprehension of cosmic force, with the reference of powers of creation from various Supreme Immortal Kings. In just 300 years, Lin Yuan had grasped over 30 types of cosmic force. Of those, 4 were considered higher cosmic forces: Open Heaven Force, Annihilation Force, Immeasurable Force, and Equilibrium Force. As for ordinary cosmic forces, there were nearly 30 kinds, including innate purple chi, infinite cutting, fluctuation domain, supreme yang thunder, and so on. Of course, these cosmic forces, Lin Yuan had only initially comprehended, without delving further into them. According to the categorization by the supreme immortal kings of the spirit realm, each power of creation could be divided into 3 realms. The first realm, second realm, and third realm. Lin Yuan had only grasped the first realm and then stopped delving deeper, investigating new powers of creation instead. Chapter 476 The Temptation of the Ninth Layer of Heaven. Please subscribe. _2 This is also the most efficient method. First understanding these powers of creation and then bringing them to the main world to transform into cosmic forces. Although he had the world coordinates of the spirit realm, Lin Yuan could return to this world at any time. But it would cost 10 strands of world-breaking origin force, so he needed to be cautious. In fact, ordinary powers of creation are just a part of the higher powers of creation. Lin Yuan mused thoughtfully. Although the dozens of powers of creation he comprehended were all at the first layer of heaven, they involved 4 higher powers of creation. Take for example, the immeasurable force, a higher power of creation, which encompassed a variety of ordinary powers of creation, including innate purple chi, fluctuation domain, and so on. Infinite cutting is also a higher power of creation. One aspect of the open heaven force. Unfortunately, not all supreme immortal kings possess the higher powers of creation. Ordinary powers of creation, if cultivated to the third realm, are also close to the second realm of higher powers of creation. Lin Yuan silently thought to himself, most creation immortal kings who mastered several third realm ordinary powers of creation have combat powers that are not much weaker than those of open heaven immortal kings. The main issue is that cultivating higher powers of creation to the third realm is extremely difficult. Even open heaven immortal kings and supreme immortal kings stop at the second realm. The dozens of powers of creation I've mastered, although they are all at the first layer of heaven, when combined, should they not be almost as powerful as the third realm of a certain higher power of creation? Lin Yuan secretly thought. If he only pondered 1 or 2 higher powers of creation, with Lin Yuan's against heaven's understanding, he might be able to cultivate them to the third realm in 300 years. But this did not meet Lin Yuan's expectations. There were so many powers of creation in the spirit realm, bringing them to the main world would transform them into cosmic forces. Quantity is definitely more important than quality. Quality can be improved after returning to the main world, but as for quantity, if not satisfied, one can only pay 10 strands of world-breaking origin force to return to the spirit realm. Understanding dozens of powers of creation was only a part of Lin Yuan's harvest from 300 years of cultivation. Lin Yuan also surpassed the 3rd stage in the perfection of the 8th stage martial Tao and entered the 4th stage. In Lin Yuan's conception, the 8th layer part is divided into 4 stages. Reaching the 4th stage means he's nearly at the end. This also aligns with many evolutionary paths in the main world, which are also divided into 4 stages for their 8th layer part. As for becoming invincible beyond the 8th layer, in essence, it's also in the 4th stage, but having mastered some kind of cosmic force, it's considered an unreplicable case. Unfortunately, the main world has a lot of restrictions on cosmic forces. My Taiji force is a cosmic force. Future martial Tao cultivators, even if they follow my footsteps step by step, will not be able to transform into this kind of cosmic force again. Lin Yuan slightly shook his head. Of course, if the Taiji force doesn't work, one could try other forces, for example, the 5 elements force. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth. These 5 basic elements nurture and restrain each other. Once these 5 basic rules are fully understood, and the 5 elements rules are fused, it will probably be another cosmic force. Martial Tao encompasses all Taos and theoretically, it has the potential to give birth to many cosmic forces. There's also the space rules model. Within the depths of Lin Yuan's eyes, faint spatial fluctuations began to appear. In 300 years, Lin Yuan has fully understood up to 4,600 core spatial models. Aside from the 3,000 understood 300 years ago, he has comprehended more than 1,600 more in these 300 years. To know, there are over 7,000 core spatial models, and as the number increases, the difficulty of understanding them increases. Under such circumstances, Lin Yuan was still able to comprehend more than 1,600, which is quite incredible. 4,600 core spatial models. Taking the main world's 8th stage evolvers as a template, my inner world should have a size of about 680,000 miles in radius. The more spatial models one comprehends, the larger the inner world becomes. Theoretically, If 8th layer evolvers comprehend 7,782 core spatial models, their inner world could reach a size of 10 million miles in radius. But that's the size of a normal 8th layer evolver's inner world. The size of my inner world. A trace of peculiarity appeared on Lin Yuan's face. With the blessing of the mysterious gourd, Lin Yuan's inner world had nearly reached a staggering 70 million miles in radius. Such an immense inner world, let alone human 8th layer evolvers, even the starry sky wanderer Kuan of the peak bloodline and special beings couldn't compare. Theoretically, the upper limit of the starry sky wanderer Kun's inner world is 50 million miles in radius, and that is why starry sky wanderer Kuan is known as a peak bloodline, with an upper limit 5 times that of humans. But now, Lin Yuan's inner world has exceeded the upper limit of the starry sky wanderer Kun's inner world by a large margin, which is quite unbelievable. The most crucial thing is, an inner world with a 70 million miles radius is still far from Lin Yuan's limit. The gourd. The inner world size surpassed that of other 8th layer evolver spatial understanding by tenfold, naturally because Lin Yuan's absorption of the liquid inside the mysterious gourd had reached the 4th kind. Out of the 7 types of liquid, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and purple, Lin Yuan had begun to absorb the green liquid. The color of the mysterious gourd also transformed into a grayish-green. The difficulty of absorbing the green liquid is far greater than the first 3 types of liquids. I started absorbing this kind 20 years ago, but until now, it has not even increased my physical bodhis power in the inner world by 1-fold. Lin Yuan shook his head slightly, predicting that the absorption rate would only slow down as he progressed, especially with the last 3 types, cyan, blue, and purple. Lin Yuan even suspected they might be prepared for 8th layer life forms. No matter what, I've already made a killing. Having an inner world 10 times larger out of nowhere, even supreme beings would find it inconceivable, right? Lin Yuan didn't know if supreme beings could achieve this, but at least with his identities as a 7th-level citizen coupled with being the Star Lord and the founder of the martial path evolutionary path, he had never heard of such a thing. Now the power of my Taiji primordial spirit is far weaker than my true body, Lin Yuan thought to himself. Without the mysterious gourd, there wouldn't be much difference between the power of the Taiji primordial spirit and the true body. The true body mastered the powers of Taiji, open heaven, and other cosmic forces, which the Taiji primordial spirit could also wield. Even because of the nature of its soul energy physique, the Taiji primordial spirit could be a bit more troublesome. But now, due to the gap in the inner worlds, the Taiji primordial spirit's inner world is only 6.8 million miles in circumference. On the other hand, the inner world created by the true body has reached 70 million miles in circumference. With a 10-fold difference, the true body and the primordial spirit are simply not on the same level. The 3,000 Dao provinces. Xianxia domain. Martial temple. With 300 years of development, today's martial temple has become a massive presence in Dongyun Tao province. Its influence has transcended Dongyun Tao province, spreading to dozens and even hundreds of adjacent provinces. Across the entire 3,000 Dao provinces, the influence of the martial Tao cultivation system might not match that of the immortal path, but within Dongyun Tao province and the surrounding provinces, its influence is undoubtedly unmatched. Even the immortal path cannot suppress the martial Tao in the slightest. The reason is that the martial ancestor himself is personally stationed in the martial temple. Over the past 300 years, the martial ancestor has made several appearances to give lectures on the nature of martial Tao, leading countless geniuses and prodigies onto the path of martial Tao. Inside the cave abode, Lin Yuan sat cross-legged. Martial Tao now. Lin Yuan slowly opened his eyes. After 300 years of promoting martial Tao, the current martial Tao cultivation system had become the strongest cultivation system beneath the immortal path, second to none. Over the past 300 years, the occasional tribulation transcending celestial king sought to visit Lin Yuan, only to sense a fraction of Lin Yuan's strength, as had the man in the purple robe, before ordering their disciples and descendants not to oppose the martial temple. Over time, the influence of martial Tao grew larger and larger. It is predictable that, with time passing, martial Tao might truly reach the heights of the immortal path. The only dissatisfaction for Lin Yuan was that, to this day, martial Tao had still not produced an 8th-stage powerhouse. Despite several lectures, they have only resulted in a large number of martial Tao 5th-stage and 6th-stage practitioners. However, the 8th stage of martial arts, comparable to a tribulation-transcending celestial king, a warrior of the martial path, alluding to an 8th-stage powerhouse, has yet to emerge. Chapter 477 The Battle of Ascension. Please subscribe. 8th Stage of Martial Tao. Lin Yuan shook his head slightly. The martial Tao cultivation system was so formidable solely because he, the martial ancestor, was present. Essentially, the foundation of martial Tao was still too shallow. Despite having a history of tens of thousands of years, apart from the 300 or 400 years when Lin Yuan was in charge, there weren't many achievements during other times. Just relying on a few hundred years to cultivate an 8th stage martial Tao from nothing was like a fool's dream. Even if Lin Yuan exhausted his own origin source to nurture a cultivator, when breaking through from the 7th rank to the 8th layer, if one's state of heart during the heart demon tribulation was even slightly off, it would all be in vain. As long as I can cultivate an 8th layer martial Tao cultivator before my time of stay runs out, the martial Tao cultivation system can become truly stable, Lin Yuan thought to himself. In Lin Yuan's heart, among the few who might possibly advance to the 8th layer, naturally were the old 7th rank cultivators, Li Qing, Xianxia, and Ye Yun. As for those who started on the path of martial Tao in the past few hundred years, their accumulation was far from sufficient. The 7th layer of heaven. More than 20 supreme immortal kings, including Lin Yuan, converged in one place, their terrifying aura shaking billion-mile radius. In the era since the 3000 Tao states, over tens of millions of years, the number of supreme immortal king-level powerhouses born added up does not surpass 30. And now, almost all of them were gathered here. The 8th layer of heaven. The open heaven immortal king stood towering, wielding a pitch-black giant axe on his back, his gaze sharp as he looked off into the entrance to the 8th layer of heaven. There, enveloped in clouds and mist, fearsome auras circulated ambiguously, clearly the methods left behind by those supreme immortal kings of the prehistoric era. To prevent later generations from entering the 8th layer of heaven and sharing the chance of the 9th layer of heaven with them. Last time during the Ascension battle, my strength hadn't broken through. This time it surely will. The open heaven immortal king glanced at the other supreme immortal kings, his tone filled with confidence. The power of creation he wielded belonged to a higher order. Moreover, it was a higher order power of creation adept in offense, making him the main force in each incursion into the 8th layer of heaven. And this invasion into the 8th layer of heaven was also referred to by the supreme immortal king such as the open heaven immortal king as the Ascension battle. Open heaven, we believe in you. Exactly, those old fogies from the prehistoric era are far too greedy, even trying to monopolize the opportunity of the 9th layer of heaven. I'll deal with that missed immortal king later. The numerous Ascension battles had left the supreme immortal kings present quite familiar with those old-timers of the 8th layer of heaven. As supreme immortal kings, even if they failed in their ascension, at worst they would only suffer heavy damage. It was nearly impossible for them to fall, so those supreme immortal kings from the 8th layer of heaven had never descended to the 7th layer of heaven to hunt them down. In fact, even if they did pursue them, it would be very difficult to completely kill a supreme immortal king. Lin Yuan stood aside, quietly listening to the exchange between the various supreme immortal kings. Among the more than 20 supreme immortal kings present, only Lin Yuan was a newcomer, having never participated in an ascension battle, so he remained silent at this moment. Lin Yuan looked up slightly toward the entrance to the 8th layer of heaven. With his perception, he had already sensed that auras of supreme immortal king caliber kept converging, indicating that the supreme immortal king level forces of the 8th layer of heaven also knew that an ascension battle was soon to be initiated by the likes of the open heaven immortal king. The 9th layer of heaven. Lin Yuan also grew curious about what exactly the 9th layer of heaven contained that made the supreme immortal kings from the prehistoric era gather at the 8th layer of heaven and jointly prevent later supreme immortal kings from joining. I will know soon enough, Lin Yuan silently thought to himself. The 8th layer of heaven. Vast and boundless, a series of terrifying auras all appeared at the exit connecting to the 7th layer of heaven. Those little guys below want to fight their way up again, but what's the point with their power, even if they get up here? A figure enshrouded in clouds and mist sneered. As a supreme immortal king from the prehistoric era, he was completely entitled to call the open heaven immortal king and the supreme immortal king little guys. We mustn't underestimate them. That open heaven immortal king holds the power of open heaven, and there's also the supreme immortal king who commands the immeasurable force. If they comprehend it to the 3rd heavenly realm, that would be troublesome for us. Another figure spoke slowly. The power of open heaven. The immeasurable force. Both were higher order powers of creation. In previous ascension battles, the open heaven immortal king and the supreme immortal king had only comprehended these higher order powers of creation to the 2nd realm. That's why they were easily repelled. It's just a trouble, the third figure stated calmly. What if they truly understood the higher order powers of creation to the third realm? Those long-lived supreme immortal kings, almost all of them had similar methods. In terms of talent, they, the supreme immortal kings of the prehistoric era, were in no way inferior to those of the 3000 Dao States era. In terms of cultivation years, they had nearly spanned 2 eras, far surpassing the supreme immortal kings like the Open Heaven Immortal King. Although longer years of cultivation did not necessarily mean stronger power, they certainly couldn't be weak. Leave that Open Heaven Immortal King to me. I also cultivate the power of Open Heaven, a similarly towering figure said. The powers of creation in the spirit realm were not unique and could be comprehended by multiple immortal kings. Since the power of Open Heaven was a higher order power of creation specialized in killing power, it naturally drew the attention of many supreme immortal kings. As the various supreme immortal kings were conversing, boom! A fearsome gleam of an axe, coming from the 7th layer of heaven, cleaved through the void and crashed toward the hazy entrance of the 8th layer of heaven. Enormous amounts of clouds and mist were split apart, and though they quickly recuperated, they were immediately followed by a succession of further gleams of the axe. Chapter 478 The Battle of Ascension. Please subscribe. _2, the youngster from Open Heaven. Enshrouded in mist, the figure furrowed his brows. Let's take action, don't let them really advance up here. Brother Open Heaven's power of Open Heaven must have broken through again. The Supreme Immortal King muttered softly as he watched the axe lights cleaved by the Open Heaven Immortal King. The other Supreme Immortal Kings agreed upon hearing this. At this moment, the strength of the Open Heaven Immortal King was terrifying. Every axe light was stronger than a full strike from a normal Supreme Immortal King. Such endless cleaving, even the Supreme Immortal King would not dare to intercept directly. Whoosh! Suddenly, the entrance to the 8th layer of heaven. Several figures walked out. Among them, a towering figure also held a giant axe, but this one was entirely blue, the axe light pervasive, directly blocking the offensive of the Open Heaven Immortal King. Lads, are you rolling down yourselves, or shall we knock you down? The leading figure spoke, his voice booming, echoing across the 7th layer of heaven. It's Xianxia Immortal King, this old undying. The tone of the Supreme Immortal King carried a hint of fear. Xianxia Immortal King possessed a higher-level power of creation and 6 ordinary powers of creation, and all these powers were cultivated to the 3rd realm. His strength was terrifying to the extreme. Lin Yuan was sizing up Xianxia Immortal King with somewhat heated eyes. The aura of the power of creation emanating from Xianxia Immortal King included 3 types that Lin Yuan had never encountered before, one of which was a higher-level power of creation. Let's go. Together. The Supreme Immortal King soared into the sky, and the other Supreme Immortal Kings followed suit. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, dozens of Supreme Immortal Kings were engaged in combat. Each Supreme Immortal King's offensives impacted for thousands of miles, and if the battlefield had not been in the 9 heavens but in the 3000 realms, the mere aftermath of these dozens of Supreme Immortal Kings' battles would have been enough to destroy the 3000 realms several times over. Countless true immortals and half-step immortal kings would pretty much die out completely. But in the 9 heavens, especially in the 7th layer of heaven, these aftershocks did not cause much impact. Or rather, the impacts that did occur, such as torn spaces, would quickly recover. Lin Yuan followed at the back, taking the time to survey the battle situation. Open Heaven Immortal King was entangled by a Supreme Immortal King who also comprehended the power of Open Heaven. Their fighting style was almost the same, a straightforward axe for axe, but the power of Open Heaven involved between each axe strike caused even ordinary Supreme Immortal Kings to tremble. And the Supreme Immortal King was battling 2 Supreme Immortal Kings together, wielding the immeasurable force with each strike massively overwhelming. Even when fighting 2, he was suppressing the opposition. Lin Yuan just glanced around and felt someone watching him. It's been a long time since I've taken action. Young lad, as a senior, I allow you to strike first, otherwise, you might not get the chance later. A slender man stood in the distance, smiling kindly at Lin Yuan. Allow me to strike first? Lin Yuan pondered. Considering how much effort to use, even though the strength of the Taiji primordial spirit was far less than the true body. But possessing the higher-level power of Taiji, along with 4 other higher-level powers of creation and dozens of ordinary powers of creation. Even though the dozens of other powers of creation were all at the 1st realm. Plus the enhancement of an inner world spanning millions of miles. Combined, Lin Yuan's strength, he believed, was not inferior to a supreme immortal king who mastered the third realm of higher-level power of creation. Perhaps even stronger. Yes. The slender immortal king nodded slightly. Suddenly, his expression subtly changed. Because he realized Lin Yuan had disappeared. This disappearance was not movement or teleportation, but a true disappearance, vanishing from this world. Not good. The slender immortal king's expression drastically changed. Instinctively, he began to retreat explosively. But it was already too late. Lin Yuan's figure, unbeknownst to him, had appeared by his side. Then he gently threw a punch. This punch had no might leaking out, but in the eyes of the slender immortal king, it felt like his scalp was exploding, vaguely sensing a deadly threat. Split. The slender immortal king's skin burst forth with a lot of blood. The next moment his figure exploded. Under Lin Yuan's punch, his body was smashed to pieces. Whoosh. A phantom soul appeared, rushing towards the entrance to the 8th layer of heaven frantically. This soul moved so fast that even Lin Yuan felt unable to stop it, so he did not make a move. Pity. Lin Yuan shook his head slightly. The power of creation wielded by the slender immortal king, he had already comprehended it. Killing the opponent did not yield much benefit. The explosion of the slender immortal king's body immediately attracted the attention of other supreme immortal kings around. Those supreme immortal kings from the prehistoric era looked at Lin Yuan with unbelievable eyes. The strength of the slender immortal king might not be very formidable, but it wasn't too weak either, that he could be smashed so decisively by a single punch. Could it be that he had comprehended some high-level power of creation to the third realm? And was it a similar offensive power of creation like the power of open heaven? Only under such an unexpected situation, without the slender immortal king's prepared defenses, could he have been taken down so quickly. Ha ha ha, martial ancestor, I hadn't expected you to possess such strength. Open heaven immortal king laughed heartily. Although the slender immortal king did not perish, his physical body was shattered, and even if he could consolidate a physical body with his soul again, his strength wouldn't be fully displayed, and he certainly won't participate in this ascendancy battle. Martial ancestor? At the entrance to the 8th layer of heaven, Lingshu immortal king had not joined the battle. His task was to guard the entrance to prevent the supreme immortal kings below from sneaking through and stealthily ascending to the 8th layer of heaven. Chapter 479 The Battle of Ascension. Please subscribe. Underscore 3. When did such a strong being appear in this era? The Lingshu immortal king's expression shifted slightly. He was constantly vigilant about the battlefield, watching the fight between Lin Yuan and the emaciated immortal king. He vaguely felt that Lin Yuan's strength probably surpassed that of the open heaven immortal king and the supreme immortal king. This won't do, the balance has been broken. The martial ancestor cannot be allowed to remain. The Lingshu immortal king made up his mind. He had not anticipated that this ascension battle would add someone as exceptional as the martial ancestor. Such strength, yet it was the first time he was participating in the ascension battle. It was inconceivable. Under these circumstances, in the ensuing war, no one would be able to withstand the martial ancestor, and the situation would likely turn disadvantageous for them. I must make a move. At the very least, I must heavily injure the martial ancestor. The Lingshu immortal king looked towards Lin Yuan. At this moment, several supreme immortal kings from the prehistoric era joined forces, attempting to block the martial ancestor. But with Lin Yuan's casual movements, those supreme immortal kings were clearly unable to hold on for long. The Lingshu immortal king still stood there, but his true body was hidden deep in the void, approaching Lin Yuan. As the strongest presence in the field, the supreme immortal king, the Lingshu immortal king believed that with his methods, a stealth attack would gravely injure, if not kill, the martial ancestor. You are too weak. Too weak, and the power of creation you control is also quite ordinary. Lin Yuan looked at the several supreme immortal kings surrounding him. With each strike he dealt, their aura would weaken significantly. Just then, a dusky shadow loomed over Lin Yuan from above. Destruction. The Lingshu immortal king raised his right hand, and a dusky aura enveloped Lin Yuan. An advanced power of creation. The great destructive force. This was a killing power of creation that ranked alongside the force to open the heavens. The difference between the two is that the force to open the heavens attacks a single point or a line, whereas the great destructive force attacks an area. Massive and overpowering. All in front of it will be annihilated. Lin Yuan's expression shifted slightly. This kind of great destructive force was indeed the bane of energy, spirit, and life. Disperse. Lin Yuan's mind stirred slightly. He wanted to disperse his primordial spirit body. But immediately after, a binding force bore down upon him. I have cultivated the great destructive force to the third realm, and 6 other ordinary powers of creation to the third realm as well. The combined strength of 6 third realm ordinary powers of creation is almost not weaker than a third realm advanced power of creation. It's akin to me wielding 2 third realm advanced powers of creation. The Lingxiu Immortal King was very confident in himself. Even the Open Heaven Immortal King could only defend when facing him. By lowering himself to make a stealth attack on this martial ancestor, he might even be able to shatter his physical body and completely rob him of the ability to continue fighting. No good, the martial ancestor. The Open Heaven Immortal King, who was far away, also noticed this scene and instantly became anxious. He slashed out several times in quick succession, trying to restrain the Lingxiu Immortal King. But he was immediately entangled by the opponent in front of him. The Supreme Immortal King was the same, his immeasurable force vast and boundless, but alas, he was desperately blocked by 2 peer Supreme Immortal Kings. Rustle. Lin Yuan's brows were tightly knitted. Under the restraint of 6 types of third realm powers of creation, it was difficult for him to move in a short time, and he could only resist the pouring great destructive force. The terrifying great destructive force descended, quickly causing Lin Yuan's primordial spirit body to collapse and eventually be forcefully reduced to nothingness. This easily? The Lingxiu Immortal King was somewhat surprised. He thought that the martial ancestor's spirit might be able to escape. The martial ancestor! The Open Heaven Immortal King roared in rage. He could never have imagined that the martial ancestor would die. In the Ascension battle, the fall of a Supreme Immortal King was an extremely rare event. Despicable Lingxiu Immortal King. The Supreme Immortal King's gaze was icy as he stared at the Lingxiu Immortal King. He had seen the Lingxiu Immortal King's stealth attack from the shadows with his own eyes. The Lingxiu Immortal King let out a cold snort, unconcerned. Suddenly, just then, the Lingxiu Immortal King seemed to sense something and his expression changed slightly. What is that? The Lingxiu Immortal King looked down, toward the 6th layer heaven, the 5th heaven, 4th heaven. Within his perception, he faintly detected dull and trembling sounds from the lower heavens, as if some colossal being was continually trampling on various marvels and phenomena, and at an inconceivable speed, was piercing through one heaven after another, heading towards the 7th layer of heaven. The Lingxiu Immortal King could almost imagine that the myriad suppressions and restrictions of the 9 heavens were almost as fragile as tissue paper in front of this colossal being. Even the barriers between the heavens were effortlessly torn apart by it. Boom! The next moment, the ground of 7th layer of heaven collapsed, and a figure exuding boundless vital energy appeared above the Lingxiu Immortal King, looking down from a great height with indifference. The oppression that felt like the heavens collapsing almost made the Lingxiu Immortal King suffocate. He nearly knelt down. Chapter 480 The Invincible Lin Yuan. Subscribe please. 7th layer of heaven, silent and soundless. All the Supreme Immortal Kings who were fighting, whether they were born during the era of 3000 Dao states or the prehistoric era, all ceased their combat. They subconsciously looked towards the figure who, with absolute brutality and absolute strength, tore the barrier between the 7th layer of heaven and the 8th layer of heaven. In the spirit realm's 9 heavens, from the 1st layer of heaven to the 2nd layer of heaven, from the 2nd layer of heaven to the 3rd layer of heaven, from the 7th layer of heaven to the 8th layer of heaven. There are 2 paths. One is to follow the fixed entrances between each layer of heaven, which would allow one to ascend to the next layer. However, at these fixed entrances, numerous challenges exist, such as the endless wind calamity, the 9-fold thunder tribulation, and so on. The other is to not use the fixed entrances and directly tear open the barrier between the layers of heaven to climb to a higher level. However, the barriers between the layers of heaven are not so easily torn apart. Even for a Supreme Immortal King, to tear the barrier between the 1st layer of heaven and the 2nd layer of heaven requires considerable effort. Far less convenient than simply entering through the entrance. And the barriers between each layer of heaven are more robust than the last. A normal Supreme Immortal King might expend some effort to tear open the barrier between the 1st layer of heaven and the 2nd layer of heaven. But the barrier from the 2nd layer of heaven to the 3rd layer of heaven would require a Supreme Immortal King to give it his all. As for the barrier between the third layer of heaven and the fourth layer of heaven, an ordinary supreme immortal king simply cannot manage it. In this battle to ascend to the heavens, the open heaven immortal king and supreme immortal king from the era of 3000 Tao states chose to ascend at the entrance leading to the 8th layer of heaven. Because that is the simplest way. As for forcibly tearing the barrier between the 7th layer of heaven and the 8th layer of heaven, the open heaven immortal king, the supreme immortal king, and more than 20 other supreme immortal kings working together. It could indeed be possible, but it would at least take several days and nights. With that amount of time, the supreme immortal kings from the prehistoric era residing in the 8th layer of heaven would have long been aware, and likewise would have prepared at the barrier above, making it no different from starting a battle from the entrance. The open heaven immortal king, the supreme immortal king, and more than 20 other supreme immortal kings working together, would need several days and nights to barely manage to tear open the barrier between the 7th layer of heaven and the 8th layer of heaven. The barrier between the 6th layer heaven and the 7th layer of heaven, although not as tough as the former, would certainly also require more than 20 supreme immortal kings giving their full effort for the better part of a day or even 2 days to hope to tear it open. But just a moment ago, the figure that suddenly arrived, how long did it take to shred the barrier between the 6th layer heaven and the 7th layer of heaven? A breath. Or merely an instant. And this figure, it seems, did not only tear apart the barrier between the 6th layer heaven and the 7th layer of heaven. The barriers of the 5 major layers beneath were all brutally shredded without a moment's pause. This power is too terrifying. Even for the likes of the open heaven immortal king and supreme immortal king, such formidable supreme immortal kings, it caused their hearts to tremble at this moment. Furthermore, in the moment that figure appeared, an invisible and terrifying chi and blood domain covered 1/10 of the 7th layer of heaven, enveloping all the supreme immortal kings within it. Compared to the shock of the other supreme immortal kings, Xianxia immortal king felt almost suffocated at this moment. Merely approaching that figure caused the higher power of creation in his body to fall into dead silence, not to mention the 6 other ordinary powers of creation. You, who exactly are you? Which era's powerful figure are you? Xianxia immortal king asked tremblingly. As a supreme immortal king from the prehistoric era, Xianxia immortal king understood that the spirit realm had gone through one era after another over countless millennia. The prehistoric era? The era of 3000 Tao states. Those were just the 2 most recent eras. Before these 2 eras, there were even more ancient and inscrutable eras. Who am I? Just now, didn't you sneak attack me? Lin Yuan glanced at Xianxia immortal king and spoke calmly. The Taiji primordial spirit, under the great destructive force of Xianxia immortal king's 3rd realm, transformed into nothingness. Although it was partly because Lin Yuan dismissed it intentionally, it was indeed due to Xianxia immortal king. At the moment the Taiji primordial spirit was sneak attacked, Lin Yuan's true body left the martial temple and directly entered the 9 heavens, following the principle that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. He traversed through various marvels and phenomena, layer barriers, and arrived here. Sneak attack you? Xianxia immortal king was slightly stunned. Immediately, his face showed an incredulous expression. The martial ancestor earlier. Was it this person in front of him? Xianxia immortal king found it hard to believe. The martial ancestor's strength was indeed very strong, even surpassing the open heaven immortal king and supreme immortal king. But that was it. In a one-on-one situation, even without sneak attacking, Xianxia immortal king was confident he could suppress the martial ancestor. The reason for the sneak attack was merely to resolve the fight quickly and, as much as possible, erase this unstable factor that was the martial ancestor. For Xianxia immortal king, who had lived through the long years, he no longer cared about whether it involved sneak attacking or not. The surrounding supreme immortal kings were also closely watching Lin Yuan. They couldn't help it. Lin Yuan's method of appearance was too terrifying. With formidable barriers of the heaven, the appearance was like mere thin paper in his presence. It was utterly unimaginable. The martial ancestor. He is the martial ancestor? How is that possible? No, wait, the aura is similar, they could indeed be the same person. Many supreme immortal kings, especially those from the era of 3000 Tao states, initially were utterly dumbfounded, but as they carefully felt it out, they vaguely discovered that the martial ancestor, who they had good relations with, indeed had similarities in aura with the person before them. This similarity was fundamental, possessing the same power of creation, as well as that vast power similar to the world's force of the spirit realm. The difference is that the earlier martial ancestor, who possessed that type of world's force, if it were from the lower realm's One Dao province. Chapter 481 Invincible Lin Yuan, subscribe please. Under Sir II, then the martial ancestor now could casually release a strand of world power that was as vast as 3,000 Daozhou states. Impossible, how could you be so strong? Even if it's an avatar or incarnation, the gap between it and the true self couldn't possibly be this big. Lingxiu Immortal King murmured to himself, voicing the doubts that all the supreme immortal kings harbored in their hearts. The difference in strength between the former and current martial ancestors was too great, and even though Lingxiu Immortal King knew such a powerful being would not deign to lie, he still refused to believe it. That's something you don't need to know anymore. Lin Yuan shook his head slightly. Under normal circumstances, Lin Yuan's Taiji primordial spirit was not much weaker than his true self. But alas, the mysterious gourd had brought about a tenfold increase both to the true Bodhi's internal world and to the physical body. What did a tenfold increase imply? The internal world expanded from 680,000 square miles to 70 million square miles, and the boost to the power of the world was far beyond 100 or a few hundred times. It was precisely because of his vast inner world that Lin Yuan was able to crushingly break into the seventh layer of heaven. Of course, apart from the physical body and inner world, the divine skill enhancement that Lin Yuan commanded also widened the gap between his true self and the Taiji primordial spirit. Enhancement is a physical body divine ability that can incidentally boost the spirit will of the soul, but its foundation lies in the physical body. The Taiji primordial spirit, which is only the primordial spirit body, is incapable of using this divine skill. However, the enhancement divine skill came with side effects. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Lin Yuan would not use this trump card. A thought flickered in Lin Yuan's mind. The terrifying power of the world, following the spatial planes of the seventh layer of heaven, directly rolled towards Lingxiu Immortal King. The physical body of Lingxiu Immortal King directly turned to dust, the higher power of creation, the power of annihilation, condensed into a sphere, and fell into the hands of Lin Yuan. The other types of ordinary powers of creation were also integrated by Lin Yuan into his body. These powers of creation, especially the higher power of creation, were highly valued by Lin Yuan. Taking them back to the main world would transform them into higher cosmic forces, greatly benefiting his 9th rank Dao. Swish! After the physical body of Lingxiu Immortal King shattered, an ethereal soul body flew out in escape. As a supreme immortal king within the immortal cultivation system, most of their methods are invested in the soul. Battles between supreme immortal kings rarely end in life or death, largely because the supreme immortal kings at most just give up their physical bodies. As long as they are willing to escape with their soul bodies, they could almost always get away. Too terrifying. The soul body of Lingxiu Immortal King trembled in spirit. Just now, under the pressure of the power of the world, he nearly failed to escape with his soul body. This martial ancestor, his background is definitely not simple. He must be one of those terrifying beings from the earliest eras. Lingxiu Immortal King's soul body tore through the void, fleeing towards the entrance to the 8th layer of heaven. You think you can escape? Lin Yuan disappeared from where he stood. The next moment, next to Lingxiu Immortal King's soul body, a hand reached out and grabbed. Ah! Lingxiu Immortal King's soul body let out a piercing scream and was immediately grasped by Lin Yuan, who proceeded with a soul search and then refined it into the purest spiritual power. The 8th layer of heaven. An area of winding palaces. Within a certain side hall, a man with a face that closely resembled Lingxiu Immortal King opened his eyes. As a supreme immortal king who had survived from the prehistoric era, Lingxiu Immortal King had many life-saving methods. Even if his true self perished, he could still resurrect within this body that had been prepared long ago. However, at this moment, Lingxiu Immortal King felt no joy from his resurrection. His gaze was filled with worry and unease. That martial ancestor is too frightening. I have cultivated the power of annihilation to the 3rd realm and supplemented it with 6 other ordinary powers of creation of the 3rd realm, but in front of that martial ancestor, I couldn't even struggle. Lingxiu Immortal King felt a chill in his heart. For the long years from the prehistoric era to now, he finally felt the breath of death. It was complete death. Given the strength of the martial ancestor, he will surely enter the 8th layer of heaven soon. Lingxiu Immortal King steadied his spirit. I must inform the chaotic celestial king and the others. In the prehistoric era, although Lingxiu Immortal King was an outstanding figure among the supreme immortal kings, he was not the strongest. The ones who could truly be called the strongest immortal kings of the ancient past were the chaotic celestial kings, who had led Lingxiu Immortal King and the others to take charge of the 8th layer of heaven. These supreme immortal kings had mastered several high-level powers of creation and had all cultivated to the third realm. Their strength was immeasurable. Of course, in the eyes of the Lingxiu immortal king, even if the strongest immortal kings under the chaotic celestial king were added together, they would still be far from being a match for the martial ancestor. At least in front of the chaotic celestial king, he could still talk back for a while, but the mere thought of resisting the martial ancestor was something he dared not even entertain. But now the Lingxiu immortal king didn't have much of a choice, as the martial ancestor's entry into the 8th layer of heaven was imminent. The only thing he could rely on was the chaotic celestial king and his peers. The chaotic celestial king has been studying the 9th layer of heaven for so many years, perhaps he has figured out some kind of killing move that can stop the martial ancestor. The Lingxiu immortal king had felt the power of the martial ancestor and didn't even dream that the chaotic celestial king and the others would be able to repel, let alone defeat him. If they could just barely hold him off, it would be a fortune from the heavens. After Lin Yuan conducted a soul search on the Lingxiu immortal king, he learned many secrets about the 8th layer of heaven and the prehistoric era. So it turns out that the group of supreme immortal kings from the prehistoric era, led by the chaotic celestial king, the chaotic celestial king had realized 4 kinds of high-level powers of creation and had also cultivated them to the 3rd realm. After the end of the prehistoric era, the chaotic celestial king led a group of supreme immortal kings to ascend to the 8th layer of heaven and has been trying to reach the 9th layer of heaven ever since, but to this day, they have yet to succeed. Lin Yuan pondered in his heart. The chaotic celestial king had realized 4 kinds of high-level powers of creation and cultivated them all to the 3rd realm. In this respect, Lin Yuan couldn't compare. Although Lin Yuan had also realized 4 kinds of high-level powers of creation, they were all at the 1st realm. But Lin Yuan also possessed an inner world with a radius of 70 million miles, and with the vast expanse of his inner world, he didn't consider the chaotic celestial king a concern. Has it not been long enough, and still, they have not ascended to the 9th layer of heaven? Lin Yuan was very interested in the chaotic celestial king. The 4 types of powers of creation the other party possessed probably included 1 or 2 that Lin Yuan had not realized. Them. Lin Yuan's gaze turned to the battlefield, looking towards the other supreme immortal kings. Run! Quick, back to the 8th layer of heaven. The supreme immortal kings from the prehistoric era fled without hesitation towards the entrance to the 8th layer of heaven. What a joke! If they did not run now, were they waiting to follow the same path as the Lingxiu immortal king? Although they didn't know the full extent of Lin Yuan's strength, just based on the means he used to kill the Lingxiu immortal king, he was far beyond what they could handle. As for joining forces and resisting together, when the gap in strength reached a certain level, the advantage of numbers would no longer be an advantage, unless it was the Sea of Bugs tactics used in the main world. Otherwise, dozens of supreme immortal kings, in front of Lin Yuan, would likely be no more significant than toys, to be trifled with at will. Lin Yuan did not stop these supreme immortal kings from their mass flee. There was mainly no need, since above was the 8th layer of heaven, so where could these supreme immortal kings even escape to? For a moment. Within the 7th layer of heaven, only Lin Yuan, the open heaven immortal king, the supreme immortal king, and more than 20 other immortal kings were left. Martial ancestor. A moment later, the open heaven immortal king mustered the courage, approached Lin Yuan, and tried to speak. Open heaven. Lin Yuan gave a faint smile, voluntarily reined in his aura, and casually greeted him. During the 300 years, Lin Yuan had a pleasant time interacting with the open heaven immortal king, the supreme immortal king, and the various supreme immortal kings. He did not intend to leverage his strength to overwhelm at this moment. The response from Lin Yuan let the open heaven immortal king breathe a small sigh of relief. At least by speaking this way, Lin Yuan was treating him as one of his own. He didn't need to be as terrified as those supreme immortal kings from the prehistoric era. Martial ancestor, what kind of power of creation have you mastered exactly? Seeing this, the supreme immortal king stepped forward as well, unable to contain his curiosity. The power Lin Yuan had just displayed was terrifying, and if he had not lacked some of the characteristics that were legendary for a king above an immortal king, they would have almost believed Lin Yuan had already taken that step. What kind of power of creation? Lin Yuan shook his head. Should it be considered cosmic force? The cosmic force nurtured within the inner world was a power entirely different from the power of creation and cosmic force. It depended on the inner world one had opened up. It didn't require enlightenment. As long as one had opened up an inner world, one could master it. Chapter 482 500 Years. Seeking subscriptions. Power of the world? Open heaven immortal king. Supreme immortal kings such as the Supreme Immortal King exchanged glances. They had never heard of such power of creation before. However, since martial ancestor said so, the power must exist. Let's go. Let's take a look at the 8th layer of heaven. After Lin Yuan finished speaking, he headed towards the entrance to the 8th layer of heaven. At that time, the entrance to the 8th layer of heaven no longer had the Supreme Immortal Kings from the prehistoric era standing guard. It was empty, with wisps of illusory power drifting around. That was the trial from the 7th layer of heaven to the 8th layer of heaven. A natural phenomenon within the 9 heavens. Even if destroyed, it would recover. Just like the barriers between the layers of heaven torn by Lin Yuan were now quickly restoring themselves. Just go straight up from the entrance. Lin Yuan took a glance. Previously, when the Taiji primordial spirit was ambushed by the Lingshu Immortal King, Lin Yuan in his true body was in a rush, so he bulldozed his way through with a brute force approach. Now there was no need for that. The entrance was right in front of them. They could simply pass through. The trial from the 7th layer of heaven to the 8th layer of heaven, similar to a soul illusion, was not unlike the heart demon tribulation and the tribulation of the spirit, but it was many times stronger than the latter. However, the many supreme immortal kings present had been tempered over a long period of time, and the strength of their spirits, even without deliberate cultivation, was not so weak that they could not easily pass through. Although Lin Yuan had experienced a relatively short period of time, his mental will index, having been honed in a supreme being's body, coupled with the nurturing of his vast inner world, was no weaker than that of the supreme immortal kings present, if not stronger. Whoosh! Lin Yuan easily arrived at the 8th layer of heaven. The environment here was similar to the 7th layer of heaven. The only difference was that there was a mysterious aura faintly permeating the area, originating from the 9th layer of heaven above. There are people beyond man, and heavens beyond heavens. Above the 9 heavens are the celestial beings. That's the age-old saying in the vast spirit realm regarding the 9th layer of heaven. The so-called celestial beings, as speculated by many supreme immortal kings, might be an invincible entity seated in the 9th layer of heaven overlooking the vast spirit realm. The reason why the supreme immortal kings from the prehistoric era and the many eras of the 3000 Tao states were so eager to enter the 9th layer of heaven was to seek the guidance of that invincible entity. This is the 8th layer of heaven? Indeed, it's extraordinary, different from the 7th layer of heaven. Open heaven immortal king and supreme immortal kings like the Supreme Immortal King followed closely behind. This was their first ascent to the 8th layer of heaven. During past ascension battles, they were all repelled by the Lingshu Immortal King. Now, following behind Lin Yuan, they finally realized their long-standing wish. The 9th layer of heaven? Lin Yuan looked up, gazing into the sky. Compared to the barriers of the previous 8 layers of heaven, the barrier of the 9th layer of heaven faintly emitted a pale golden light, and even Lin Yuan was not sure he could break through it. Or to say, confident about shredding it, but it would take a significant amount of time, as the barrier between the 9 heavens, once damaged, would quickly regenerate. The speed at which Lin Yuan tore the barrier had to be much faster than the rate at which it recovered. Let's go to the entrance of the 9th layer of heaven. Lin Yuan made up his mind. After the soul search of the Lingshu Immortal King, he was very familiar with the 8th layer of heaven and directly flew towards the entrance to the 9th layer of heaven. The entrance to the 9th layer of heaven. Dozens of figures stood there. These dozens of figures were the most powerful of the supreme immortal kings from the prehistoric era, each having cultivated at least one type of high-level power of creation to the 3rd realm. Most had mastered more than 2 types of high-level power of creation in the 3rd realm. The Lingshu Immortal King had so oppressed the supreme immortal kings of the 3000 Tao states era that they could hardly breathe. But among this group of supreme immortal kings, they were basically at the bottom of the ranks. In the prehistoric era, having experienced a complete era of time, plus the long years of the current 3000 Tao states, the number of supreme immortal kings was much larger and stronger than the immature 3000 Tao states era. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Lin Yuan's figure appeared not far away. Open heaven immortal king and supreme immortal kings like the Supreme Immortal King also followed behind Lin Yuan. So many powerful beings? Open heaven immortal king was a bit overwhelmed. Only now did they realize how ludicrous their battles for ascension had been. Among the many supreme immortal kings standing at the entrance to the 9th layer of heaven, just a few could easily suppress the 20-some supreme immortal kings. Supreme Immortal King was also looking tense at this moment. Had it not been for Lin Yuan standing in front of them, they might have had the urge to flee. The head of the various supreme immortal kings from the prehistoric era was a tall figure with a chaotic aura. He stood at the very forefront of all the immortal kings, clearly the leader among the prehistoric era's strongest immortal kings. Chaotic Celestial King. Lin Yuan's gaze was calm. Having soul-searched Lingshu Immortal King, Lin Yuan naturally knew that the chaotic Celestial King was the strongest immortal king of the prehistoric era. Martial Ancestor. The chaotic Celestial King turned around, looking seriously at Lin Yuan. Lingshu has already told me. Your strength, Martial Ancestor, far surpasses mine. Whatever you want, Martial Ancestor, just say it, and I will agree. The chaotic Celestial King spoke frankly as if yielding proactively was not a matter of shame. In fact, that was indeed the case. Lingshu Immortal King had already shown to the chaotic Celestial King and other supreme immortal kings the happenings of the seventh layer of heaven. Including the chaotic Celestial King, all the supreme immortal kings from the prehistoric era acknowledged that they could not accomplish what Martial Ancestor had done. Even in many deductions made by the chaotic Celestial King, even if all supreme immortal kings joined forces, in the face of Martial Ancestor, they could at best only struggle to survive for a while before inevitably facing defeat. Knowing the outcome in advance, the chaotic Celestial King naturally would not have any resistance, yielding and admitting defeat proactively. Oh! Chapter 483 500 Years, Subscription Request. _2 Lin Yuan did take an extra look at the chaotic Celestial King. That was good. It spared him the extra effort. Separate your soul fragment, let me perform soul search, Lin Yuan said directly. He chose not to directly perform the soul search, which was a response to the chaotic Celestial King's initiative to cooperate. Separating a soul fragment for Lin Yuan to perform soul search, compared to being suppressed by Lin Yuan before the soul search, had no significant difference, but it was much better in terms of saving face. No problem. The chaotic Celestial King unhesitatingly split off a part of his soul fragment. This part of the soul fragment contained all his memories, and Lin Yuan only needed to perform soul search on this soul fragment to know everything he wanted to know. Lin Yuan took over the soul fragment from the chaotic Celestial King. Within a few breaths, the soul search was complete. So that's how it is. Lin Yuan had some realizations in his heart. In the memory of the chaotic Celestial King, there was the reason for the closing of the prehistoric era. A treasure fell from the ninth layer of heaven at the end of the prehistoric era. This treasure led to a great battle among many supreme immortal kings of the prehistoric era. That battle caused the spirit realm to seem like it had entered doomsday, with tribulation stage celestial kings falling in great numbers. Ultimately, as the victor, the chaotic Celestial King obtained that treasure and entered the eighth layer of heaven with many under his command. After the prehistoric era, the spirit realm took a long time to recover, gradually entering the next era, the 3000 Tao States era. Up to today, the 3000 Tao States era is still in its early stage, not even 1,000th of the prehistoric era. Give me the treasure. Lin Yuan looked at the chaotic Celestial King. In the prehistoric era, the chaotic Celestial King was only one of the strongest. There were a few supreme immortal kings comparable to him, capable of compelling the chaotic Celestial King to risk battling peers and initiate a supreme immortal king-level clash. Clearly, the treasure was critically important. This is that treasure. The chaotic Celestial King hesitated for a moment, then promptly handed over the treasure. Having completed the soul search on his soul fragment, Lin Yuan's understanding of that treasure was no lesser than his, with no need for any concealment. The treasure handed over by the chaotic Celestial King was an irregular stone, with faint traces of a mysterious force emanating, suffused with a primordial aura. This stone contains an aura of power of creation beyond the higher power of creation. As long as one can comprehend it, even if unable to take that step, one can still advance greatly in the realm of the Supreme Immortal King. The chaotic Celestial King explained in a low voice, looking at the irregular stone in Lin Yuan's hand. Unfortunately, after so many years, I have never comprehended it. Even though I've been nearing the ninth layer of heaven, I have never grasped it. The tone of the chaotic Celestial King conveyed an indescribable sentiment. The mysterious aura emanating from the ninth layer of heaven was similar to that of the stone, and the chaotic Celestial King believed that being near the ninth layer of heaven for a long time would aid in comprehending the stone. But over the years, the chaotic Celestial King's understanding of the stone had reached a standstill, and the mysterious power of creation exceeding the higher power of creation remained elusive. This was also the reason he was so decisive in handing over the stone. Because the chaotic celestial king felt that even if given another era, 10 eras, he would almost never comprehend the power of creation within the stone. Power of creation beyond the higher power of creation? Lin Yuan observed the irregular stone seriously. Compared to the chaotic celestial king's limited understanding, Lin Yuan hailed from the main world, understood the essence of cosmic force, and knew that power surpassing higher cosmic force was something only a 9th-rank evolver could control. Lin Yuan carefully examined the irregular stone. Your discernment is exceptional, observing the mysterious origin, deepening your mastery over its power. Your discernment is exceptional, observing the mysterious origin, deepening your mastery over its power. Your discernment is exceptional, observing the mysterious origin, deepening your mastery over its power. Mysterious origin, Lin Yuan contemplated internally. One thing was certain. The aura within this irregular stone indeed surpassed the higher power of creation. Having observed it for a while, if it were any other higher power of creation, he would have at least grasped something, but facing this irregularly shaped stone, he still had no gains. Of course, the no significant gains here refers to the gains being too insubstantial to be noticed. The 9th layer of heaven. Lin Yuan stored the irregular stone and looked up towards the distant entrance to the 9th layer of heaven. Compared to the entrances of the previous 8 layers, the entrance to the 9th layer of heaven was incredibly broad, as if welcoming supreme immortal kings to ascend. However, in reality, after having executed a soul search on the chaotic celestial king's memories, Lin Yuan knew that the tribulations leading to the 9th layer of heaven were terrifyingly formidable. Inside the entrance to the 9th layer of heaven, there lie the life imprints of the 10 strongest supreme immortal kings in the history of the spirit realm. That is to say, to enter the 9th layer of heaven, one must defeat the 10 strongest supreme immortal kings ever to have existed in the spirit realm. In fact, to call them the 10 strongest supreme immortal kings is somewhat imprecise. They should be referred to as the 10 strongest beings, because perhaps some of the supreme immortal kings have already taken half a step beyond. The prehistoric era, the 3000 Dao provinces era. These are just the 2 most recent epochs. Before these epochs, there existed even more ancient epochs. No one knows when the spirit realm was born, and although the supreme immortal kings existed alongside the spirit realm, it doesn't mean they won't die. Not to mention, the end of the prehistoric era saw the demise of a great number of supreme immortal kings. With the strength of the martial ancestor, one could certainly make a breakthrough at the entrance to the 9th layer of heaven, the chaotic celestial king murmured. He had attempted it, but was unable to defeat even the first supreme immortal king's life imprint and was nearly crushed, managing to retreat only with great difficulty. Do you want to watch me make a try? Lin Yuan glanced at the chaotic celestial king. No rush. Even Lin Yuan would not underestimate the 10 strongest beings in the history of the spirit realm. It's not a matter of one era or one epoch, but since the birth of the spirit realm itself. Lin Yuan indeed intended to challenge the entrance to the 9th layer of heaven, but not now. He would wait until his power reached its peak before trying. Currently, although Lin Yuan surpassed such beings of an epoch as the chaotic celestial king, he was far from reaching his own limits. The green liquid in the mysterious gourd could still be absorbed further. The martial Tao evolution system 8th stage had yet to be completely unlocked. A complete core space model had also not been fully realized. The cultivation of the Taiji power, too, had not yet reached the 3rd realm. The several other high-grade powers of creation, along with many ordinary powers of creation, were merely at the 1st realm. There was also that irregular stone obtained from the chaotic celestial king, which contained a mysterious power of creation surpassing the superior powers of creation. The chaotic celestial king might not have deciphered it, but that doesn't mean Lin Yuan couldn't. It was only a matter of how much time it would take. Lin Yuan was still far from his ultimate limit. During this traversal, Lin Yuan's allowed residence time had a limit of over 900 years, of which only just over 400 years had passed. Before clearly understanding what kinds of unexpected events might occur upon entering the entrance to the 9th layer of heaven, Lin Yuan naturally wouldn't rashly proceed. The chaotic celestial king had previously made an attempt but quickly retreated because he faced the first life imprint. That's why retreat was still an option. Lin Yuan wasn't sure whether, if he ventured deeper and failed, he would still be able to retreat. In such circumstances, Lin Yuan naturally opted for stability. Other supreme immortal kings yearned to ascend to the 9th layer of heaven because they wished to take that next step. Lin Yuan did not have this desire. In the main world, many evolution paths were perfected, and Lin Yuan had many directions for advancing into the 9th rank. His task now was to securely spend the rest of his allotted time, converting it into gains to take back to the main world. Right. All of you immortal kings. Hand over a strand of your powers of creation to me. Lin Yuan surveyed the chaotic celestial king and other prehistoric-era supreme immortal kings and commanded. Yes. The chaotic celestial king hesitated, unsure of what Lin Yuan needed so much power of creation for, but dared not ask further and obediently shared a strand of his own power of creation. Very good, very good. Lin Yuan looked at the dozens of strands of powers of creation, including several high-grade ones he had never seen before, feeling quite satisfied. And so it was. Lin Yuan, in his true form, stayed stationed before the entrance leading to the 9th layer of heaven, and once again began his meditation for enlightenment. Time passed. 500 years flew by like flowing water. Chapter 484, The Strongest Life Form Since the Birth of the Spirit Realm. Please subscribe. Xianxia City, Lin Residence. Lin Yuan and Lin Jianpain, along with Xianxia, sat facing each other, eating spiritual dishes while chatting. Over the past 500 years, the fame of martial ancestor had spread across the 3,000 Dao provinces. Even the strongest immortal king from the prehistoric era, the chaotic celestial king, had voluntarily submitted to him. However, very few knew about the parents of martial ancestor, which was also the result of Lin Yuan's deliberate suppression. His time residing in the spirit realm was limited. Unable to protect Lin Jianpain and Xianxia at all times, he could only try his best to detach them from the association with martial ancestor. Chong Air, try this spiritual dish, Xianxia said with a smile, as Lin Jianpain also expressed great interest. The three of them finished eating. After a moment of silence, Lin Yuan took the initiative to say, I might not come back for a long time. With only a few more years left until his time limit, according to Lin Yuan's plan, this was supposed to be his last meeting with Lin Jianpain and Xianxia. A long time. Lin Jianpain and Xianxia looked somewhat disappointed, but they had also expected this, as Lin Yuan was simply too dazzling, overseeing the 3,000 Dao provinces, hailed as the strongest in the era. Such a great being surely had more important matters to attend to. Chong Air, go ahead and do what you need to do. We are very satisfied with our current lives, Lin Jianpain said. Were it not for Lin Yuan, their Lin family would still be a minor clan in Xianxia City, nowhere near their current exalted status. If you need help, seek Li Qing, she will arrange it well, Lin Yuan nodded. After leaving the Lin residence, Lin Yuan walked on the streets of Xianxia City. In the past 500 years, Xianxia City had already become the most prosperous center of Dongyun Tao Province. The city, having undergone dozens of expansions, now covered an area of several million square miles. Every day, numerous true immortals and half-step immortal kings came in and out, and even the presence of tribulation-transcending celestial kings was felt. The martial Tao cultivation system had spread across the 3,000 Dao provinces, in no way inferior to the immortal cultivation system. In fact, in the several dozen Dao provinces centered around Xianxia City, the martial Tao cultivation system even surpassed the immortal cultivation system. It could be said that the prosperity of the martial Tao cultivation system had reached its pinnacle. Not even those tribulation-transcending celestial kings or supreme immortal kings dared to shake it. My current strength has already reached a certain limit, Lin Yuan thought to himself. More than 200 years ago, Lin Yuan had already thoroughly perfected the 4th stage of the 8th stage martial Tao. Since then, the 8th stage chapter was pioneered, and as for the 9th rank chapter, Lin Yuan also began to try integrating the Taiji rule into the space rules, making some progress, with the integration currently at 20 to 30%. In addition, Lin Yuan had already mastered over 5,500 core space models in his comprehension of the fundamental space rules. In 500 years, Lin Yuan had comprehended over 900 core space models, a pace not comparable to the 1,600 models understood in the previous 300 years. But it should be noted, out of 7,782 core space models, the difficulty of comprehension increases towards the later stages. Many evolvers at the peak of the 8th rank had been stuck on certain space models for thousands, if not tens of thousands of years. In just 500 years, Lin Yuan had almost effortlessly comprehended over 900 core space models. Truly an abnormal and monstrous feat. Only over 2,000 core space models left to completely master the complete space rules, Lin Yuan thought. The space rules are a foundational rule of the main world, and many 9th rank powerhouses have yet to master it. Although in theory, the 8th rank has the potential to master the complete space rules. But that's just theory. In the long history of the main world universe Starry Sky, Which 8th rank powerhouse has actualized this theory? The breakthrough from 8th rank to 9th rank requires the fusion rules, but as a foundational rule, the space rules do not require full mastery for integration. At the 8th rank, attempting to grasp the space rules or to discover more cosmic forces are both extremely time-consuming endeavors, arguably delaying the breakthrough to the 9th rank. With 5,500 core space rules, enough to uphold an inner world of 750,000 square miles, plus the 13-fold base enhancement from absorbing the fluid in the mysterious gourd. Now, the size of my inner world has already surpassed 9,750,000 square miles, approaching 1 billion square miles, the green fluid inside the mysterious gourd being far more difficult to absorb than the previous 3 types. Lin Yuan had only managed to absorb nearly 99% over 500 years. In theory, absorbing all 4 types of fluids in the mysterious gourd could enhance the inner world by up to 13.32 times. Now that Lin Yuan had already reached 13 times, he wasn't far from completely absorbing the green fluid. Power of creation. Lin Yuan thought of the greatest gain from this traversal. The many gains before for Lin Yuan could be accomplished anywhere, not exclusive to the spirit realm. However, the power of creation, only the spirit realm, with the easing of restrictions on such a cosmic force and the cooperation of various celestial kings, had Lin Yuan made astonishing progress in comprehending the power of creation. So far, I have mastered 12 kinds of superior power of creation and over 60 ordinary ones. In fact, in the last 300 to 400 years, Lin Yuan had essentially given up on comprehending ordinary power of creation. Since each superior power of creation encompassed the essence of multiple ordinary ones to some extent, comprehending a single type of superior power of creation was equivalent to understanding several, if not dozens, of ordinary ones. 12 kinds of superior power of creation. Lin Yuan's gaze grew fervent. His focus not on these 12 kinds of superior power of creation, but on feeling the strand of primordial essence of power of creation in his inner world. Chapter 485 The Strongest Life Form Since the Birth of the Spirit Realm. Please subscribe. Understood, this power of creation that had been grasped was precisely what Lin Yuan had comprehended from the treasure that had fallen from the 9th layer of heaven, given by the chaotic celestial king. The end of the prehistoric era was related to this stone-like treasure. The chaotic celestial king speculated that this treasure contained a mysterious force that transcended higher power of creation, but after spending an unknown amount of time and even dominating the 8th layer of heaven, he had not comprehended the slightest bit of it. Primal force. Lin Yuan's heart burned with eagerness. Relying on his against heaven's understanding, it had taken him over 400 years to comprehend it from that treasure. Lin Yuan named this power of creation the primal force, symbolizing the initial power of all things. The primal force of the first realm could suppress the higher power of creation of the third realm. Even Lin Yuan was somewhat shocked by the formidable might of this power of creation. There are still over 10 years left to stay. It's time to make a challenge in the 9th layer of heaven. Lin Yuan had made up his mind, and this was also the reason why he had bid farewell to his parents. Even if he were to continue his seclusion for another decade, it would not be of much benefit to him. Instead of doing so, it would be better to enter the legendary 9th layer of heaven to take a look. Martial Temple Hall. Lin Yuan was seated at the main seat, with dozens of warriors from the martial temple standing respectfully below. In 500 years, plus the previous 300, Lin Yuan had intentionally nurtured 8 7th-rank practitioners within the martial Tao cultivation system. And as Lin Yuan's direct disciple in the central divine continent of the lower realms, Li Qing had even created his own inner world, stepping into the 8th stage of martial arts. Martial Ancestor. The dozens of martial temple powerhouses spoke fervently, bowing towards Lin Yuan. In the span of hundreds of years, martial Tao cultivators have been emerging endlessly, often suppressing cultivators of the immortal path. But from today on, you need to be more discreet. Lin Yuan scanned the crowd, speaking calmly. Martial Ancestor is the strongest in the 3,000 Tao states. Even those tribulation-transcending celestial kings treat you with the highest respect. Why should we be discreet? A young 7th-stage martial Tao asked softly. Lin Yuan glanced at him. This 7th stage of martial arts practitioner, who possessed rare martial talent, followed the path of thunder and comprehended the Tao of world-ending thunder, excelling in the aspect of attack. After today, I want return to the 3,000 Tao states, and you will have to rely on yourselves. If you're not discreet, you're going to suffer. Lin Yuan said, his gaze distant. With Li Qing, an 8th-stage martial Tao cultivator stationed here, and the might left by Lin Yuan, Even if he truly disappeared, for at least 1 million or even 10 million years, the martial Tao cultivation system would not encounter any problems. Lin Yuan said this as a reminder to these strong figures of the martial temple. Where are you going, martial ancestor? The expressions of the other martial temple powerhouses changed. What did the martial ancestor mean by saying he would not return to the 3,000 Tao states? Just take care of yourselves. Without further explanation, Lin Yuan disclosed that although consuming 10 strands of world-breaking origin force could allow him to descend once more into the spirit realm. However, unless it was absolutely necessary, Lin Yuan would not do such a thing. Even if the martial temple were to be destroyed one day, as long as the martial Tao cultivation system was still being spread, Lin Yuan couldn't be bothered to intervene. The 8th layer of heaven. The chaotic celestial king, open heaven immortal king, supreme immortal kings gathered at the entrance leading to the 9th layer of heaven. The martial ancestor has summoned us here. But what for? Could it be that he wishes to challenge the 9th layer of heaven? With the martial ancestor's strength, penetrating the heavens and the earth, he might indeed possess the capability to enter the 9th layer of heaven. At the entrance to the 9th layer of heaven, there are the imprints of the strongest 10 life forms since the birth of the spirit realm. The martial ancestor is indeed powerful, but compared to the strongest 10 from ancient times to the present, the supreme immortal kings discussed softly. The history of the spirit realm was unfathomable, but in those earliest ancient epochs, there were even existences born concurrently with the spirit realm. Even if the martial ancestor was extraordinary, compared to those beings born with the world, he would likely fall short. At that moment, Lin Yuan's figure appeared silently. Martial ancestor. Martial ancestor. Martial ancestor. The chaotic celestial king and other supreme immortal kings immediately ceased their discussion, bowing slightly to the martial ancestor. I am going to enter the 9th layer of heaven. If you want to watch, just stay here and watch. Lin Yuan glanced at the many supreme immortal kings. Having said this, Lin Yuan vanished, appearing at the entrance to the 9th layer of heaven. Is the martial ancestor really going to challenge the 9th layer of heaven? Quick, let's watch. This is an event that may not happen even in an entire era. I wonder how far martial ancestor can get. Many supreme immortal kings were invigorated, quickly engaging in discussion. There are 10 layers in the passageway leading to the entrance of the 9th layer of heaven. There is a life form imprint on each layer, making a total of 10 life form imprints. These 10 life form imprints come from the 10 most powerful life forms since the birth of the spirit realm. Although I possess the strength of the strongest celestial king of the prehistoric era, I had no power to resist in front of the first layer life form's imprint. Can martial ancestor defeat the imprint of the first layer life form? The chaotic celestial king was somewhat expectant. 500 years ago, knowing he was no match for martial ancestor, he didn't resist and submitted willingly. The chaotic celestial king only knew that martial ancestor was very strong, but he didn't know exactly how strong. Now, he could take the opportunity to gauge martial ancestor's true strength as he braved the 9th layer of heaven. The first layer life form. Lin Yuan stepped into the passageway, where clouds and mist swirled and quickly condensed into a humanoid silhouette. This silhouette, clad in red armor, stood there as if it were the great sun of the spirit realm, radiating endless light and warmth. The first layer life form imprint in the passageway of the 9th layer of heaven is the weakest among the 10 layered imprints. But it still ranks among the top 10 existences amongst the countless mighty of the spirit realm since its inception. Even for a dominant figure of an era like the chaotic celestial king, there was no ability to resist before it, utterly overpowered and trounced. You! The figure in red armor looked down on Lin Yuan, its resuscitated life form imprint driven only by battle instincts, devoid of emotions. Outside the passageway, the chaotic celestial king and other supreme immortal kings widened their eyes in shock. The true combat power of martial ancestor could almost be seen from his fight with the first layer life form imprint. I wonder how many moves martial ancestor can withstand. The chaotic celestial king watched closely, expecting a drawn-out battle where martial ancestor might win but only with a Pyrrhic victory, and that was if he could win at all. Inside the passageway, Lin Yuan also sized up his opponent. Don't recognize. Lin Yuan shook his head slightly. Throughout the epochs of the spirit realm, countless strong had vanished into the annals of history. Lin Yuan was at most familiar with the epochs of the 3,000 Dao provinces and knew some of the prehistoric era, but his knowledge of the mighty from the more ancient epochs was very limited. The power of creation that it mastered is something I have already figured out. Lin Yuan immediately felt somewhat lackluster, planning to end the battle quickly. Boom. Lin Yuan raised his right hand and pressed forward. Terrifying world power surged out. The figure in red armor resisted for only a moment before it was crushed to dust by the immense world power. With Lin Yuan's nearly 100 million miles of inner world, coupled with the augmentation of many powers of creation, his strength was already extreme. No special moves or secret techniques were needed, just an overwhelming force. What? It's over already? Martial Ancestor is too strong. Outside the passageway, the crowd of supreme immortal kings was dumbfounded. They had been guessing how many moves Martial Ancestor could withstand before being defeated, but to their surprise, the situation was entirely the opposite. The life form that ranked 10th in the history of the spirit realm didn't even withstand a single move from Martial Ancestor. Martial Ancestor. Even the chaotic Celestial King couldn't believe it. He had tried to breach the first layer and knew how terrifying that life form imprint was. Yet, the life form represented by this imprint seemed as fragile as an infant before Martial Ancestor. Inside the passageway, Lin Yuan breached the first layer and quickly arrived at the second layer. Then came the third layer, the fourth layer, the fifth layer. These life forms, represented by the life form imprints, weren't limited to the human race and included true dragons, sky winds, Qilins, and many other formidable beings. These beings were entirely above the supreme immortal kings, but in front of Lin Yuan, they were still as fragile as ants, no different from the figure in red armor from the first layer. A single strike penetrated them. Before long, Lin Yuan had reached the 10th layer. This layer's life form was the most powerful since the inception of the spirit realm, bar none. Surrounded by clouds and mist, Lin Yuan stood still, waiting. Soon, from deep within the clouds, a tall figure slowly emerged. This towering figure looked young, with boundless vitality coursing through its body, mighty and endless. Chapter 486. Where is everyone? Please subscribe. Outside the passage. Chaotic Celestial King and many other supreme immortal kings were stunned. Initially, they thought that after Martial Ancestor defeated the opponent on the first layer with one move, he would need to engage in a tough struggle against the subsequent layer's opponents. But unexpectedly, for Martial Ancestor, the opponent on the first layer was just the beginning. Second layer, third layer. All opponents were defeated with a single move. How was this possible? Could it be that the strength of the opponents in the first, second, and third layers were all the same? Many immortal kings thought it through and realized it was impossible. The only possibility was that Martial Ancestor was too strong. Just like how Chaotic Celestial King, a supreme immortal king, could resolve any tribulation-transcending Celestial King with one move, whether they were just beginning or at their peak. My God, that is the Dragon Ancestor, the true dragon progenitor of the spirit realm, born at the dawn of the spirit realm, vanished before the endless ages. A supreme immortal king saw that Martial Ancestor's opponent on the 7th layer was a million zhong long true dragon, its dragon horns golden, exuding a noble aura. The true dragon progenitor, as the ancestral origin of all in the spirit realm with true dragon bloodline, it was said the dragon ancestor intended to merge his own bloodline into all beings' bodies. Thus, even though countless millennia had passed since the dragon ancestor vanished, the true dragon bloodline still lingered. In the Zhejiang domain of the 3,000 Dao provinces, a dragon rising site once bore a tribulation-transcending dragon king. Of course, that dragon king was no match for the true dragon progenitor. The former, upon facing the latter, didn't even need to make a move, being completely suppressed by the innate differential in their bloodlines. The dragon ancestor was too famous, its bloodline lingering in the spirit realm without vanishing into history. So many supreme immortal kings recognized it at first glance. In fact, the power of Dragon Ancestor was indeed terrifying, situated on the 7th layer at the entrance to the 9th layer of heaven. That is, in the spirit realm's judgment, the Dragon Ancestor was ranked the 4th strongest life form since the creation of the spirit realm. However, in front of Lin Yuan, even the formidable true dragon progenitor was merely punched through, his dragon body pierced, the residual force of the punch shattering his remaining body. The many immortal kings fell silent. Chaotic Celestial King's gaze was empty. That is the Heavenly Phoenix Ancestor. Unexpectedly, the Heavenly Phoenix Ancestor is even stronger than the Dragon Ancestor, located on the 3rd layer. By the time Lin Yuan reached the 8th layer, the many supreme immortal kings revived their spirits, looking towards this layer's opponent, starting to discuss amongst themselves. The heavenly phoenix ancestor was similar to the true dragon progenitor, both powerful lives born at the inception of the spirit realm, and the heavenly phoenix ancestor also infused its bloodline into other beings. In many places across the 3,000 Dao provinces, numerous phoenix nests fostered lives bearing the phoenix bloodline. Although the heavenly phoenix ancestor sparked a lot of discussion among the supreme immortal kings, remembering the fate of the true dragon progenitor made everyone sigh internally. Sure enough, facing the formidable heavenly phoenix ancestor, Lin Yuan threw out another punch, tore through the phoenix body, and entered the 9th layer. Soon, he entered the 10th layer. Up to this layer, all the supreme immortal kings, including chaotic celestial king now doubting himself, were suddenly shocked. The 10th layer. The final layer on the pathway to the 9th heaven. Also, the layer where the life stamps of the strongest beings since the birth of the spirit realm are located. To pass this layer, one must defeat the strongest life form since the spirit realm's inception. How high is this difficulty? This isn't just a strongest life form of an era, not merely of an age, but the strongest life from since the inception of the spirit realm? One might guess, the strongest life form since the spirit realm's birth must have an enormous gap compared to the second and third strongest beings. Who knows what the strongest life form since the spirit realm's birth actually looks like? Many supreme immortal kings focused intently on the 10th layer, also conversing. Could it be from my human race? Probably not. Look at the 7th, 8th and 9th layers. Those life forms aren't from the human race. Compared to naturally powerful beings like the Dragon Clan and Heavenly Phoenix Ancestor, our human race doesn't hold any advantage. Supreme immortal kings shared their views. If not for the passage of eras, those with powerful ancestral bloodlines vanishing from sight, the rulers of recent eras really might not have been immortal kings from the human race. Probably like the Dragon Clan and Phoenix Clan, a powerful life born at the dawn of the world. An immortal king spoke, causing other immortal kings to nod in agreement. As all the supreme immortal kings were conversing, from the deep mists of the 10th layer's entrance, a figure emerged. This figure was humanoid, its sleeves fluttering, merely standing there. It exuded an immensely terrifying aura, its life force enveloping the 3,000 Dao provinces. Martial Ancestor. Is this Martial Ancestor? The life stamp on the 10th layer is actually Martial Ancestor. Martial Ancestor is the strongest life form since the spirit realm's birth? The scene exploded with chatter from the many supreme immortal kings. Being the strongest life form since the inception of the spirit realm was such a lofty accolade that they had never considered that this strongest being might be Martial Ancestor, who existed in the same era as them. Indeed, easily piercing through the previous 9 opponents, Martial Ancestor. Chaotic Celestial King murmured to himself. The previous 9 opponents were no match for a single punch from Martial Ancestor. If not Martial Ancestor, then who would be the strongest life form since the spirit realm's inception? The strongest life form since the birth of the spirit realm. I never imagined I would have the honor of witnessing such a powerhouse. Yes, surpassing Dragon Ancestor and Heavenly Phoenix Ancestor, Martial Ancestor is just too abnormal. The supreme immortal kings were greatly moved. But subsequently, the many supreme immortal kings then realized Martial Ancestor was the strongest life form since the spirit realm's inception, possessing the unquestionable greatest combat power. Chapter 487 Where is the person? Please subscribe. Under 2 But could this combat power and killing force defeat Martial Ancestor himself? It's unfair. There's no way to get through the entrance to the 9th layer of heaven. Right, if it's not the 10 strongest beings since the birth of the spirit realm, even the first layer can't be breached. To be the strongest being since the birth of the spirit realm, yet to fight against one's own life imprint? How can one win? All the supreme immortal kings started discussing animatedly. The opponent formed by the life imprint would not suffer the slightest depletion of combat power, being capable of using all the methods, abilities, talents, and divine skills that the original owner possessed. That's why the reaction of the supreme immortal kings was so intense. For any powerful being, defeating an enemy was one thing, but defeating oneself? How could one defeat oneself? Moreover, the opponent formed by the life imprint had no emotions, only fighting instincts, which made them even more formidable. Of course, since both had identical abilities and methods, it was almost impossible for the opponent to defeat Martial Ancestor. But it was also nearly impossible for Martial Ancestor to defeat the opponent. This 9th layer of heaven really doesn't want us to pass, sighed the chaotic celestial king, looking up at the martial ancestor on the 10th layer. The 10th layer. Lin Yuan looked at the opponent on this layer. Indistinguishable from himself, with the same aura, the same fluctuation of vital energy, and even faintly emitting the scent of the inner world. The only difference was that the opponent's gaze was indifferent and cold, like a machine. This spirit realm. Lin Yuan shook his head slightly, although he had not actively integrated his life imprint into the spirit realm. But as long as one had existed in the spirit realm and exerted themselves, reaching a certain level of strength, their life imprint would be automatically recorded by the spirit realm. Lin Yuan stood there momentarily. The condensed martial ancestor made the first move. These strong beings formed by life imprints had no emotions or thoughts, only one idea, which was to defeat Lin Yuan. Boom! A terrifying aura pierced directly through the entrance of the previous 9 layers and spread over the 8th layer of heaven. So strong. Martial ancestor didn't use much effort in the previous 8 layers. The supreme immortal kings felt a chill run down their spines and immediately began to resist with all their might. On the 10th layer, even just the residual effects of an exchange between martial ancestor and martial ancestor, after passing through 9 layers and reaching the 8th layer of heaven, were still like heaven and earth collapsing. One could imagine. If the battlefield had not been on the 10th layer but in the 8th layer of heaven, probably the entire 8th layer of heaven would be destroyed. It might even affect the 7th and 6th layer heaven. This was simply inconceivable. Keep in mind, even with the fall of the prehistoric era, the chaotic celestial king and a host of other supreme immortal kings fighting with their lives only affected the surface of the spirit realm. As for the 9 heavens, not even the 1st layer of heaven was affected. Boom, boom, boom. On the battlefield of the 10th layer, Lin Yuan and martial ancestor exchanged hundreds of moves in an instant. Martial Tao cultivation system, numerous powers of creation, even that wisp of primal force that surpassed the higher powers of creation, the forces of the inner world nearly hundreds of millions of miles around. Any method that Lin Yuan possessed, the opponent possessed as well. This is troublesome. Lin Yuan slightly furrowed his brows. The opponent martial ancestor could be said to be strong, and yet not strong. Lin Yuan felt it was not strong because the opponent was a replica of himself, and who in the world understood himself better than he did? But in this situation, there was no way for the opponent martial ancestor to defeat Lin Yuan, yet it was also difficult for Lin Yuan to defeat the opponent. Sadly, my strength is still too low. Lin Yuan shook his head slightly. The life imprint replica at the entrance to the 9th layer of heaven also had its limits. For example, it definitely could not replicate a complete supreme being. Just that Lin Yuan's current strength couldn't compare to the entire volume of the spirit realm, the inner world nearly hundreds of millions of miles in radius, not even comparable to a great realm of the spirit realm, so replicating everything about Lin Yuan was quite easy. Should I try the physical body divine ability enhancement? Lin Yuan thought to himself. The physical body divine ability enhancement was indeed the divine ability awakened by Lin Yuan's body during this descent. Once used, all of one's own being, including the physical body, qi, blood, soul, and mind, would be enhanced tenfold. Of course, it could only last for 10 breaths, and after those 10 breaths, Lin Yuan would enter a period of weakness. Ever since he had awakened this divine skill, Lin Yuan had never tried it, as there was no need. None of the opponents he faced had ever pushed him to the extent of needing to use this divine skill. Due to the side effects of the divine skill enhancement, this divine skill could only be used as a last resort. What if the opponent has also replicated the divine skill enhancement? Lin Yuan looked at his opponent martial ancestor. He then suddenly burst forth, using his left arm as a sacrifice. He crushed the opponent's right arm. Whoosh! The physical body divine ability blood rebirth automatically activated, and Lin Yuan's left arm quickly regenerated. Lin Yuan looked towards his opponent martial ancestor, and noticed that the opponent's right arm was also rapidly recovering. Blood rebirth has been replicated, presumably enhancement has been as well. Lin Yuan immediately had a clear understanding. He knew that once he used the divine skill enhancement, the opponent would likely instantly use the enhancement divine skill as well. Although this divine skill has the effect of increasing one's own capabilities tenfold, if everyone is amplified, it equates to no amplification at all. The 8th layer of heaven. Entrance to the 9th layer of heaven. Although the clash and slaughter between the two martial ancestors affected the 8th layer of heaven, with supreme immortal kings mutually defending, they could still hold on for a while, unwilling to give up viewing the battle on the 10th layer. The fight between the strongest beings since the birth of the spirit realm, perhaps after today, there would be no next time, all supreme immortal kings would watch, even at the cost of their physical bodies. Although Lord Martial Ancestor is not at a disadvantage, he hasn't gained any advantage either. Dragging on like this will only lead to a deadlock, spoke the chaotic celestial king in a low voice. Even though the combat level of the two martial ancestors was exceedingly high, the basic advantage and disadvantage could still be discerned. Beyond man, there's always another. Beyond the heavens, there's another sky. Above the ninth layer of heaven there are heavenly beings. But this ninth layer of heaven, it's practically unreachable. Even the martial ancestor, the strongest being in history, is struggling so much. Who else could ascend it? A supreme immortal king spoke in a disheartened tone, feeling that the ninth layer of heaven he sought was nothing but an illusion. Beyond man, there's always another. Beyond the heavens, there's another sky. Above the ninth layer of heaven there are heavenly beings. The chaotic celestial king remained silent. This saying had existed for who knows how long. Even among the 3,000 Dao provinces, it extended into another meaning. That is, beyond the strong, there are stronger ones. Even for a supreme immortal king, invincibility is not guaranteed. At this moment, using it here seemed quite appropriate, even for the historically strongest being, Martial Ancestor, who was blocked on the 10th layer. Even if Martial Ancestor were able to surpass the 10th layer and enter the 9th layer of heaven, perhaps he would meet even more formidable opponents. The 10th layer. Lin Yuan was still clashing with his opponent Martial Ancestor. To conquer the opponent, the only possibility is to use a method that he cannot replicate. Lin Yuan thought calmly, yet his eyes were glowing. Unable to replicate, Lin Yuan looked at his opponent Martial Ancestor. You may possess everything I have, but can you possess my understanding? Lin Yuan's against heaven's understanding came from the door to the myriad realms, and since even the supreme beings in the spirit realm could not replicate it, how could they replicate the door to the myriad realms? Your understanding is against heaven. As you fight the opponent, you gradually discern the opponent's weaknesses. In an instant, many vulnerabilities of the opponent Martial Ancestor appeared in Lin Yuan's realization. Primal Force. Lin Yuan activated the power of the world, merging it with the primal force, which transcended higher creation powers, forming a terrifying strike that instantly penetrated his opponent Martial Ancestor. With that, the battle ended. The opponent Martial Ancestor stood there stunned. His inner world began to collapse rapidly under Lin Yuan's strike, and his physical body started to disintegrate into dust. Crashing sounds. The opponent on the 10th layer disappeared. Lin Yuan stepped forward, vanishing from the 10th layer. The 9th layer of heaven. Clouds billowed. Endless and vast. Lin Yuan stood alone on the peak of a mountain. They say there are always greater skies beyond the heavens, and greater people beyond men. Above the 9th layer of heaven there are heavenly beings. Lin Yuan looked around. All creatures and matters lay beneath his feet, standing alone on the mountain peak, overlooking as though in the vast world, he was alone. But where are the people? You're tuning in to the Wisdom Diary YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.